you read a lot of things about like people on their deathbeds and stuff, and it's like no one ever talks about the amount of money they made, right? It's about the experience they had, the time they spent with their families. Like, that's the one thing you cannot put a price tag on. I tell everybody this, like, you cannot put a price tag on your time.
One of the things I never want to say, and I even think this with life, is I never want to say, like, what if? Like, what? I hate that. I hate that feeling. What if I would have done this? Or what if I would have just tried this? Or what if? And there's very few things that I say what if about.
You have to play to your strengths and to your given, what you've been given.
You can't try to be something you're not. Jim Braddock was the boxer's name. Anyways, but he made this marvelous comeback and was beating everybody, and he was winning, and I freaking sobbed, man, just because I love that victory,
right? Rudy.
Yeah, exactly. I guess everybody likes that.
Man is not fully conditioned and determined, but rather determines himself, whether he gives in to conditions or stands up to them. In other words, man is ultimately self-determining. Man does not simply exist, but always decides what his existence will be, what he will become in the next moment. That is a quote from Viktor Frankl from his book, Man's Search for Meaning. On this episode of Gritty Bowmen, I interview my grandfather, Joe Lane. My grandfather is nearly 90 years of age, and his time on this earth is almost over. Every human being travels the road of life, and in my estimation, the best humans among us are the ones who travel their road with moral fortitude. The best among us are those who love the best they can. I know this might sound cliche or come across as fairytale-ish to some, but I truly believe this to be so. In the book Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl shares a poignant story about this simple truth which has always stuck with me, which ironically came to him while living out the horrors of life in a Nazi concentration camp. Quote, "Let me tell what happened on those early mornings when I had to march to our work site. There were shouted commands. Detachment, forward, march, left 2, 3, 4, left 2, 3, 4, left 2, 3, 4. First man about, left and left and left, and caps off." These words sounded in my ears even now. At the order caps off, we passed the gate of the camp, and searchlights were trained upon us. Whoever did not march smartly got a kick, and worse off was the man who, because of the cold, had pulled his cap back over his ears before permission was given. We stumbled on in the darkness, over big stones and through large puddles, along the one road leading from the camp. The accompanying guards kept shouting at us and driving us with the butts of their rifles. Anyone with very sore feet supported himself on his neighbor's arm. Hardly a word was spoken. The icy wind did not encourage talk. Hiding his mouth behind his upturned collar, the man marching next to me whispered suddenly, "If our wives could see us now, I do hope they are better off in their camps and don't know what is happening to us." That brought thoughts of my own wife to mind, and as we stumbled on for miles, slipping on icy spots, supporting each other time and again, dragging one another up and onward, nothing was said, but we both knew. Each of us was thinking of his wife. Occasionally I looked at the sky where the stars were fading and the pink light of the morning was beginning to spread behind a dark bank of clouds. But my mind clung to my wife's image, imagining it with an uncanny acuteness. I heard her answering me, saw her smile, her frank and encouraging look. Real or not, her look was then more luminous than the sun which was beginning to rise. A thought transfixed me. For the first time in my life I saw the truth as it is set into song by so many poets, proclaimed as the final wisdom by so many thinkers, the truth, that love is the ultimate and the highest goal to which man can aspire. Then I grasped the meaning of the greatest secret that human poetry and human thought and belief have to impart. The salvation of man is through love and in love. I understood how a man who has nothing left in this world still may know bliss, be it only for a brief moment, in the contemplation of his beloved. In a position of utter desolation, when man cannot express himself in positive action, when his only achievement may consist in enduring his sufferings in the right way, an honorable way, in such a position man can, through loving contemplation of the image he carries of his beloved, achieve fulfillment. For the first time in my life, I was able to understand the meaning of the words, "The angels are lost in perpetual contemplation of an infinite glory." In front of me, a man stumbled, and those following him fell on top of him. The guard rushed over and used his whips on them all. Thus my thoughts were interrupted for a few minutes. But soon my soul found its way back from the prisoner's existence to the other world, and I resumed talk with my loved one. I asked her questions, and she answered. She questioned me in return, and I answered. Stop. We arrived at our work site. Everyone rushed into the dark hut in the hope of getting a fairly decent tool. Each prisoner got a spade or a pickaxe. "Can't you hurry up, you pigs?" Soon we had resumed the previous day's positions in the ditch. The frozen ground cracked under the point of the pickaxe, and sparks flew. The men were silent, their brains numb. My mind still clung to the image of my wife, and a thought crossed my mind. I didn't even know if she were still alive. I knew only one thing, which I have learned well by now. Love goes far beyond the physical person of the beloved. It finds its deepest meaning in his spiritual being, his inner self. Whether or not he is actually present, whether or not he is still alive at all, ceases somehow to be of importance. I did not know whether my wife was alive, and I had no means of finding out. But at that moment it ceased to matter. There was no need for me to know. Nothing could touch the strength of my love, my thoughts, and the image of my beloved. Had I known then that my wife was dead, I think that I would still have given myself, undisturbed by that knowledge, to the contemplation of her image, and that my mental conversation with her would have been just as vivid and just as satisfying. Set me like a seal upon thy heart. Love is as strong as death. My Grandpa Joe has never been a perfect man, but I can say with certainty that he has always loved, and although that love may be imperfect, it's always been at the heart of who he wants and strives to be, and he has modeled well for me how a man should love and cherish his wife. And what higher endeavor can a man aspire to than to love and reduce suffering in the world? There are those in this world who honestly try to be good people, and there are those who make no effort at all. My grandfather is the former, and for that I am deeply grateful. My grandpa has always been a prominent figure in my life, and he's always been a strong man, a man of grit and determination. He's honestly one of the most physically tough human beings I've ever met. Growing up during the Great Depression and in a state of abject poverty, he was hardened and forever shaped by the rigors of his youth. And on this podcast, myself, my sister Katie, and her husband Bryce talk with my grandfather about his interesting and diverse life. Things aren't like they used to be. We've traded root cellars for refrigerators and horses for cars. We have smartphones and iPads, and very few of us are in danger of starving to death or dying from Scarlet Fever. So take a listen to this long conversation, and then stop complaining about the traffic or your job or how things aren't fair, because they could be a whole lot worse. In the words of Jordan B. Peterson, pick up your damn suffering and bear it, and try to be a good person so you don't make it worse. Because since Auschwitz, we know what man is capable of, and since Hiroshima, we know what is at stake. In other words, man is self-determining, and life has meaning, so act like it. Live a life that is intrinsically good and worth remembering. I was the little boy who climbed up in the rafters and filled this thing with insulation.
You know about it.
Dad put it was a blow-in, and it was like...
Oh, I remember.
I just kept blowing and blowing this tube of insulation. It was just filling up, and he's like, more. We want this thing warm. It's like...
It's warm.
It was a lot of work.
I took out the upper floor.
Yeah.
So I didn't have to climb. I had hip surgeries and shoulder surgeries and stuff, and it was hard to go up and down those stairs. So.
Yeah.
Well, it's good because we had to move the bed up there once and down once.
Yeah.
Or twice.
That hospital bed.
I think it
That
was
thing
us
weighs
too.
600 pounds.
Oh, it was us too that had to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. It's heavy.
In the prime of our years.
Yeah. Yeah, if I lifted the things nowadays I used to lift, my hips would just crater.
Well, it could be because you lifted so much.
Well,
Maybe.
Working at a rock quarry.
I don't know, Grandpa. When did your joints start to give you trouble?
in 1975, I got my first hip.
But was that due to a
replacement.
catastrophic injury?
Nope, that was due to hard work.
Yeah.
At least that's what I blamed it on. No, I don't know. I used to lift, speaking of lifting and loading things, I used to be able to lift so much it would just start pulling the muscles in my back and they start stinging and burning. I'd have to sit it down. And that was a 500-pound rock. So
Yeah. Yeah, there's some of those pictures of you in the rock quarry moving stuff.
yeah,
How old were you when you worked in the rock quarries?
I was 16 through 19.
3 years.
And I got married, still working there. I was 19 when we got married.
No wonder Grandma married you.
Yeah, she has some choice descriptions about a Greek god.
Yeah, I've seen the pictures.
Yeah, she embarrassed me when she says those things. Well, it was fun when it would be fun again, but it ain't going to happen. It ain't going to happen, guys. Enjoy it while you have it.
You got bionic hips now.
Yeah.
Except they don't make them, that you keep destroying them.
Yeah.
Well, this is 5 over here and 2 over here.
Oh my God.
And one shoulder. And I'm getting another shoulder the 9th of August. So I've decided, I've given up. I'm not going to die. I've tried.
You're taking that approach now.
I've prayed and I've begged. I've pleaded. And so I'm just going to do whatever Heavenly Father wants.
Oh.
How old are you now?
88.
So
I'm not very old, but
What year were you born, Grandpa?
1929.
And Grandma was 33?
She was what?
1933?
Yeah, so we started going together when she was, I guess, 15 and a half.
15 and a half?
She gets insulted when I tell people, well, she was just 16, I'll say, when we got married. Oh, I was not. I was older. I said, yeah. We got married March 9th.
On my mom's birthday?
If that's your mom's birthday. No, March 5th. And in February, you were 16, February 25th. We got married in March 5th. That's not very much past 16.
No.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's how it was with Suzanne, too. She was 19 when we got married.
Yeah.
She likes to say 20, but she wasn't.
Yeah,
I was 20 and then turned 21.
That's what Grandma is. But your mom was younger than.
She was 16.
Yeah, she was 16.
She got married.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dad was only 17.
I was born right about that time.
No,
A few months later.
that's not true.
The math doesn't quite work.
But it is so close. It is so close.
So,
It's close enough to fool people.
so in 1929, there's been a lot of changes in the world since then.
Yeah, I remember the Depression that year.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
1929, when I was born, I remember.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you guys had, when you got married, it's not like you were living high on the hog.
No, absolutely not. We borrowed my brother's pickup truck. We borrowed $20 from my sister. And we went off to Salome, Arizona. Going down to visit Donna's aunt, but we went by the way of Salome, stopped and got married, and they charged us, back in those days, $1 went up for it, but we had to pay $5 a piece for witnesses.
Really?
Yeah.
That's kind of a lot back then.
Well,
isn't it?
that was the son and daughter-in-law of the preacher. So they were making money.
So they had a family business going then.
They did, and they'd marry. Well, a month before, we tried to get married over in Holbrook in Arizona. she went with me on the truck one day to make deliveries. We went over to just beyond Holbrook and then back down to the Verde Valley. So we went into the courthouse and told the guy what we wanted to get married, you know.
Mm-hmm.
He looked over the counter and he said, looked at her kind of shady-eyed. Little girl, he said, does your mother know where you're at? And he said, you go home and talk to your mom about this and get permission. He really did. That's exactly what he said. He wouldn't do it. So we went to Salome. They'll marry anything down there.
It's like Vegas.
Yeah. And then we went into Phoenix.
So it was a real fancy wedding?
Yeah. Yeah, it's just a justice of the peace thing, you know.
Yeah.
Just to get it done. We went to got a hotel room, and she called her Aunt Helen because we were supposed to be at her house by then, you know, and spend the weekend there. Where are you at? She says. Well, we're down here at the such and such hotel. I don't remember the name now. You're what? And she repeated it. You better not be. But Aunt Helen, we got married. It's okay. We got married.
That makes it all better.
Yeah. There we go. It's all fixed.
They were probably just glad to get rid of the problem that we were causing. You know?
Maybe.
No, it was good. If her dad would have been alive, that would never have happened. But he wasn't. It did.
Yeah.
She was how old when he died?
She was 16 when they got married.
But how old when he died?
Oh, she was 7.
I was going to say, she was
Yeah.
She'd been, yeah.
Yeah.
So after you got married, I mean, how did you guys pay the bills?
Well, they say you live on love for the first 9 months.
That's probably accurate.
And then you live on milk. No, actually, I had an old 1.5-ton cab over Chevy truck, and I knew all about the rock quarry business by then. And I'd go out to the old claim we used to have, and I'd dig a load of rock, stack it on the truck, and drive it over to L.A. and sell it. And come back. And then we got a bigger truck, and we could haul more. We had a Chevy with a semi-trailer, you know, a single-axle truck and a single-axle trailer. Brakes like no brakes at all. That's when we had our first fight, was in that truck.
How'd that go?
Well, and I'll tell you about it. We came out of Prescott. We climbed up over Yarnell, up to Yarnell, and up over the White Spar and up on top. We're going down the White Spar and down the other side, and there's just a long haul, hot grade getting up there, and then slow going down till you got to Yarnell. Well, that's where my grandpa used to have a goat ranch, but what was there at that time, all that was left there was an old service station, and you might get a soda pop and a gallon of gas, but not much else. But then, down into Peoples Valley, it was straight, man. I mean, straight and downhill. So as soon as we got through Yarnell and kick her out of gear, and away we go. We had about 15 tons.
Yeah.
And an old Chevy, you know. It wasn't much of a rig, but in those days, it was what we had. And we're doing about 90 probably, and you can't stop until you get down off of this mountain and you hit the valley below, and then it starts slowing down. But with the brakes we had, with the load we had, you can't stop. Hydraulic brakes, you know.
Yeah.
And the drums get hot real quick. And so, but it felt so good after climbing up the other side, just crawling.
What rig was this again?
It was a Chevy. It was blue.
What year was it?
It was about a 46.
Okay.
You were pulling a trailer too, right?
Yeah, semi-trailer.
90 with the trailer with 15 tons. You're not stopping 15
no,
tons.
You're not.
With those brakes.
This old truck is just shaking. And like, you know, you get going like that with a loaded truck. You're just doing all you can do. Just keep it on the road and make some time while you got to down. Anyway, we got down to the bottom and slowed down and then start going back up some little hills that go up and get over into, actually, Yarnell is, no, Wilhoit is where we kick it loose at. Then you go down and you go through these curves and climb back up into Yarnell. That's where those firefighters all died a few years back. And but when we start climbing back up, well, the sun is in my eyes now, and I'm just, what happened before we started climbing back up, though, I'm fighting this old truck to keep it between the lines,
I can't drive one of those empty.
Anyway,
Technology's come a long way. I'm just saying.
The problem was the sun was in my face on top of that. And I have this little old-time truck driver's hat they used to have with a beak on it and thing, and the shade that goes out here snaps on and stuff. And so the sun's in my face, and I've got the visor down here so I can see, and I'm all this speed and stuff. And she sitting over there, the sun was in her eyes too, so she reaches over, takes my hat, and puts it on her head. and I'm fighting.
Why am I not surprised?
And out of just trying to survive, I grabbed it and put it back on my head because I couldn't
This is life and death here.
I couldn't see the road. And she got mad at me. Well, it hurt her feelings.
Right.
So she started crying, and then she got mad. And just as we got to the bottom and started back up, I had it slowed down by then. She reaches over, grabs the hat, jerks it in two pieces, and throws it out the window. That was our first fight. She just didn't understand the situation.
Yeah.
So it wasn't our last, but it was our first.
Oh, that's classic. Grandma and Grandpa right there.
Then you go through Yarnell, and then you go down. That's when you go down the White Spar. Yeah, it's crooked. That's where her dad died. He had a wreck coming home from work one time on that mountain.
Drove off a cliff, or?
Well, I guess what happened, they decided that he was coming home, driving fast, I don't know. My dad knew him. He said he was just a little smart aleck so-and-so.
I'm sure he may have said a little bit more than that.
And I don't know. That was his opinion of him. Because he was dead when she was 7, When she was 7, I was like, 11?
Yeah, right.
So, anyway, he came around the corner, and I guess he had a piece of metal that was in the road, and it blew out a tire. And the pickup he's driving, he was a boss on a job. Maybe that's why my dad thought he was smart aleck. Anyway, he blew a tire, went over the cliff. He laid down there for, they don't know how long, 2 or 3 days, alive. And so anyway, she always felt cheated.
Yeah.
So that was a big thing in her life.
Yeah, 7 years old. That's a lousy time.
Yeah, well,
to lose a dad.
It's a long time to lose your spouse, too.
Yeah.
And it's been almost 9. I'm getting tired of this.
So when you and Grandma got married, then you worked in the quarry.
No, we weren't working. When we were going together, it was a little town, And
Yeah.
she was probably the best thing going there, as far as girls. And I was probably the most handsome boy there at the time. I have no doubt about that.
You didn't have a lot of competition.
Oh, I had tons of competition, but she walked across in front of me a couple times cruising down Main Street like boys do. And, man, I just had to meet that girl. And I was new, and I was, at the time I was working in Jerome. underground at the 4,500 foot level underground at the copper mine. And we still had the rock quarries out there at Ash Fork, but we weren't working them right then. And actually, we had gone bankrupt. Well, actually, we didn't go bankrupt. Back in those days, $100,000 was a lot of money.
Yeah.
And the people that we were selling to went bankrupt, and they owed us that much money. So, naturally, we're out of business pretty much, But you can still sell rock, and you can still make a living. But anyway, I was working at the mine, and Kenny Baxter was working at the mine. He was an older person, a couple of years older than me. Well, he knew Donna because they lived there in town.
Oh.
And I was new because I just moved over there with my folks and then taken a job at the mine, which lasted 2 days. But anyway, I had a job at the mine. I'll tell you that story. Why I quit. I didn't want to die down there that deep in the ground.
Yeah.
And it was bad. It was dangerous. I'll tell you about it. But anyway, Kenny and I were going through town, and Donna and two of her girlfriends were walking up the sidewalk, and they turned into a men's store. They were buying, the rodeo was not in town, but over Bisbee there was a rodeo, and we were going to go over there to the rodeo. Or they were. I guess I made that decision after I followed her in the store. And Kenny said, "Yeah, I know her. I'll introduce you." So we slid to a pretty good stop. He was kind of wild. There was a car full of Mexican boys in front of us, and he pulled in behind them right in front of the store. And of course, he had to bump them. There's always the whites and the Mexicans in those days. They were fighting all the time, and I never was a fighter. Well, I could fight. I did darn good, but I don't like to and didn't like to. And anyway, just harassing them, but they didn't say much. They put up with it. And we got out and went in the store. Kind of took the wind out of my sails when he tried to get something going, with those guys, because I never was that kind of a
you weren't looking
person,
for a fight.
But that was the mentality in that town. Saturday nights, the gangs of Mexicans and the whites, they'd get together and fight. Anyway, we went in the store, and the girls were in there. They were trying on cowboy hats, So we got down there by them, and I imagine Kenny spoke to them or said something, but I didn't know them, and they didn't know me. Anyway, I got a hat off the rack and set it on Donna's head. Said, "I got to see what this looks like on somebody else, and then
Clever, Grandpa.
And then we talked. We struck up a conversation a little bit, and she wrote a story about that, so you can read it. I'm pretty close, so. And actually, she said later she wasn't sure who she had a date with for the movies that night. But when I showed up to pick her up, she wasn't ready. She didn't take us serious, But I was serious as a heart attack, man. I was after that girl. And so we went to the movies, and that's the last date either one of us ever had with anybody else. Now we were well pleased, and we fell in love. She said she leaves, in her story, she left her earrings in my coat pocket that night so that I'd have a reason to
Return them.
come back.
Suzanne did that a couple
And she
times.
said,
Crafty.
sure enough, old gullible Joe. Something like that. And she's right. I would have come back anyway. Hell or high water, I wasn't letting her get away. And that lasted, what was it, 65 years?
Yeah.
Something like that. And then she bailed out.
So, who worked in the rock quarry with you? Were you?
My brother worked there.
Okay.
But we got into that originally. We had some trucks that, back in the early 40s when the war was over. they had surplus trucks for sale. The Army did, and we got 2 trucks. And when we were in Milton, Freewater, Oregon, when they came, they shipped them out by rail. You had to go bid on them, at a government sale. And when they got there, they were in big wooden crates, and they were in pieces. The frames were in pieces, and all these big crates were on the frames and strapped to them. The cabs were in another crate, and just all parts. But they were kits, and we had to put those things together. Anyway.
So you had to load everything by hand or by...
No, they had some kind of loader up there at the mine. I think it was a big hopper, and we'd drive under, and they'd...
Oh, for the coal. But in the rock quarry, you had to load the trucks.
Yeah, it was by hand. Yeah, I've got a picture of a big rock that weighed like 500 plus. Have you ever seen that picture where Buddy and I are standing out there in front of it? We had on these old... We got a bag of rags one time from the rag shop. And in these big bags, just rags for wiping your hands and stuff, there was these... I think they were white pants that were real flimsy, and I think they were hospital clothes or baker's pants or somebody that wears white. Anyway, we were cutting up, we put those on, and Jerry says, those things won't last you a week out here in this, 3 days out here in these quarries. And there's a story about that he wrote too, and you've seen the picture, I think.
Yeah.
They didn't last at all, but we made them last. They were just rags when they were.
Yeah.
And
they're like torn.
That's Otter Pop crew.
At the door. Yeah, ignore them.
I can tell by the knock.
So
you're their supplier.
Yeah, their drugs I supply.
When you were a kid, like what kind of house did you grow up in, and what kind of...
Well, for a long time, I remember tents more than I do houses.
Really?
Yeah. It was
like
during
the
Depression.
Tent?
No, the tents, sometimes they were flat on the ground with canvas floor or maybe a dirt floor.
What state?
Arizona. And, my dad and my mom and my older brother and my 2 sisters, at the time the family all got Malta fever, and my sister died from it. My mom and my dad were...
She was 5?
Yeah, no, she was like a year and a half or something.
Oh, she was that young.
And I was the only one in the family that didn't get it. And so I was 4 years old. I kept guessing at that, but the other day I was looking at some headstones, and I looked at my sister's headstone, and when she died, that would have made me exactly
4 years old.
4 years old. So that would be back in 1930, 35, maybe 34. I don't know. Anyway, I was 4 years old, and my dad never recovered fully ever. But he was paralyzed from the waist down for most of my teenage years, and he just slowly, gradually, he got better, but
never was the same.
It's kind of like Uncle Joe was when his hip was out and he couldn't get work and couldn't do stuff, And so Jerry and I grew up. Jerry was sick too. They all were. And my sister Joyce, she was spoiled rotten, that girl. And she was just younger than Joanne, I guess. Older than Joanne. Yeah, Joanne was a baby. And she was just spoiled rotten. And when I would come in the house, it was winter time. My grandmother was there taking care of the family. Times were hard, and nobody else had time. Nobody else could take off of whatever they're doing to exist, But my grandma Penny was there, and she taking care of a house full of sick people and a 4-year-old Dennis the Menace type kid,
Anson?
I remember the day outside, I'd seen the grown-ups siphon gas, So I had one of these little red hoses comes off with the old hot water bottles.
Yeah, yeah.
And I stuck it in the tank, and when the gas got there, I didn't know what to do with it, and I swallowed the first mouthful.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm out in the backyard.
I've done that a few times.
I ran. Well, I actually swallowed a big. I didn't know. I just seen them do it.
I swallowed a lot too.
I didn't know where to go or what to do. I ran in the house and couldn't breathe, and I ran in the house where Grandma was, and she could smell me. She knew what happened. She started washing me off and making me drink water. As soon as she beat me on the back and got me to breathing, because I was holding my breath by then. I just couldn't. And that was a bad one. But I was outside all the time because Joyce, every time I would come in the house, she would somehow know. He's in this house somewhere. And she was so sick. You know, the little one just younger than her had just died, for heaven's sakes. So I had to stay out, and Grandma would sneak me in, put me behind the cook stove, the old wood stove. Yeah. And I'd just sit down in there and get warm for a while. But most of my time was spent outside or out at the barn. And that's where I got, they always said the only reason Joe didn't get sick was because he was too darned ornery. And during that, and as time went on, years went on, I didn't know how much to believe. Right. Because I did those things, the gas thing, and I'd seen Grandma make soap. They take a can of lye and stuff, and I had watched that lye and that water bubble, and it was really, so I got out a can of lye and some water. I got a little cook pot like they cook the mush in the morning, and I go out by the well. The well had a concrete curb around it, and then it had a thing up here you draw the water up out. We didn't have running water in the houses, not in those days. Anyway, I'm out there, and I managed to get some water, and I got this pot with the water in. I'm sitting there on the curb of the well, it goes around the well, and I'm pouring the lye into the pot, and the well had a wooden thing up where the windlass was up on top that drew the water, but it had some cracks around the bottom, and so when Grandma came out the back door to the back porch and yelled at me, I knew I was in trouble. And I grabbed the pot and I ran around the well. But I think she had seen, probably knew. And I ran around and dumped it in through one of those cracks in the well. And then they tried to tell me, I got caught, of course, and they tried to tell me that we're all going to die now because you poisoned the well.
Right.
And I felt really bad, but as the days went by, I started to doubt them because we were drinking the water and nobody was dying. And even at 4 years old, you can figure that out.
So when did you get a pilot's license?
1961.
So how old would you have been then?
That was about 30 your mom was born.
Like 30-something?
Early
30s?
When was your mother born?
56.
So it was after she was born.
Wait, it's Dad 56, she's
57, something like that.
Well, it's when we lived down in Etna.
You said 1960, roughly?
61, he said.
Yeah. 61
he'd be like 30.
61
30,
is on the
1, 2, 33.
Yeah.
So,
and what brought that about? Like, why did you get one?
No, we were falling timber, Jack and I, down in Northern California, and had a friend at church. What was his name? His last name was Vernon. His name was Vernon Sievers. And they were good people, and we were all friends. And they used to tell stories about when they flew before they moved to California from Arizona, and talk about this old Aranca they had, and him and his brother were flying, and they don't have flaps on that old airplane. And they would run through their checklist, and when it came to flaps, they would both push a door open and hold it.
Oh my gosh. That sounds safe.
Anyway, Mom and I decided we wanted to get a pilot's license, so they had a club. So we joined the club. They had 2 airplanes, and then you get to rent the airplanes, and they have an instructor, of course, in the club who ran everything, and it was mostly all for his benefit, so he could charge people to teach them to fly, you know, and have airplanes with some club organization paid for him to work and fly for the sheriff's office and all the things. He was a Navy pilot, I guess, or Marine. I don't know. I had a couple of friends down there. One was Navy and one was Marine pilot. He was one of those hot rod guys that was so smart he couldn't hardly stand himself, you know. And he hit on everybody's wife and everything else, you know. I never did like him. His name was Bud something. I can't remember. You notice I'm having memory problems. at
88, I think I'd be having.
Bud Davis was his name.
I'm surprised you remember that at all.
And he had a beautiful wife, but he wanted everybody else's wife too. And anyway, that's where I learned to fly.
Yeah.
He turned me loose to solo one day, and I said, Bud, ain't no way. I can't control this airplane on the ground. We're flying a 120 Cessna. It has a little tail wheel about 5 or 6 inches on the back, and that tail wheel is about 1 inch wide, just hard rubber, and it's so hard that airplane is out of sync or something. That wheel didn't have a flat bottom. It had a round wheel, but the bottom of the tire was on an angle, because I don't know why, but it was hard to control on the ground for somebody who's just learning.
Yeah.
And takeoff, I just about lose control and stuff. And he says, "No, you're ready. You can." And I knew I could fly in the air. It was just getting it off the ground and on the ground. Because when you land that sucker, it was wild. You know, the ground looped that thing like so easy.
Yeah.
And he said, "Now you're ready. We're going to solo today." So he gets over by the hangar, and I taxi down there, and I take off. And I'm having a real hard trouble. This thing just going sideways, and I'd get it back. And pretty soon I broke ground because it was getting so wild I had to fly or crash, you know, or ground loop or something. So I took off, but then I'm out of control. And I turned crossways the runway right when it took off. And there's a pasture and a fence over there, and I'm just off the ground, you know. So get to the fence, I horsed it up over the fence and let it down on the other side. And went off that way, sideways with the runway. It was a country airport, you know. And got some altitude and flew around up there for a while. I had no problems in the air, but then I knew when I come back down, I'm going to have the same horrible problem with
Yeah, you want to just
that
stay up
airplane.
there.
And that's why I didn't want to do it till I got better. I had told him, I said, "Bud, why don't we just get out here and practice? I'll run up and down the runway till I get it's the ground."
It's kind of a dangerous thing to like wing it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And anyway, he always told everybody after that. He always told everybody. Thought I was going to have to shoot him down to get him down because I would come in for a landing and I'd lose my nerve and I'd go back up. But
Could be your last landing, though. So.
I came in, I got it landed, and next day went out for a lesson, and we went up and down the runway until I could handle that thing.
Yeah.
And then after that, I tried to get him to do that in the first place. Yeah, you just lack confidence. Confidence, my foot. I could not control that airplane on the ground. Nobody could, real good, you know.
Yeah.
Right.
Good pilots could, but
Yeah.
But I got to tell you, I owned a 140 after that, which is kind of wild too, you know. And I learned to fly that sucker. I could come in with that thing 100 miles an hour, land on 2 wheels, and then chop the throttle and let it die down. They have, the Cessna back then has a steel or aluminum, I guess. Maybe it's steel, I don't know. Anyway, it's a spring steel, I guess, landing gear. That's all its legs are. It's just two pieces of spring steel, and if you don't hit the ground smooth, you
bounce.
You bounce. You balloon and you're way back up in the air, and of course they try to teach stall landings, which you're dead when you hit the ground practically because you fly in and hover, and finally the airplane stalls and you're on. But even then, you're going fast enough. If you were real smooth, you're going to bounce. But I finally got that mastered. I could wear that airplane pretty good.
That was before the days of GPS.
Oh, too. Yeah. Yeah, that little airplane had... the R-140 had compass. Is about it. We used to fly it to work down at Happy Camp, and I'd take, because it was like a 2-hour drive to get to work. But if we flew out of Etna at Fort Jones, hop over the mountain down to Happy Camp, and you're there in 10 minutes. But it was so crooked and so rugged country, it took forever to drive it. So I would take Jack and myself, Jack and we had to take 3, well, what I would do, going and coming, I would fly down with 2 people. And then I'd make a second trip for the third. But to get them all in there, get them down there at the same, in 2 trips, the way we would do it is 2 people up front. It was a 2-place airplane. We would take the hat rack loose, which was just a thin piece of aluminum, and fold it back up into the back of the, and one guy'd get behind the 2 seats and stand back there to take off and land, because we had to get our weight right, and he would lean way over up into the windshield between the 2 people so that we could get our weight up there, get our center of gravity right. And I'd get off, and once I get off, I could cope with the off balance, And then we'd have to land.
My self-preservation.
We had to land the same way because didn't want to stall it coming in with too much weight in the back. And then we got the Mooney after that, and that was...
Which one? You were telling me that you would go hunting, and you would get deer in the desert?
No, out of Kanab, Utah out there. There's places well out of Page and all that country. We traded our 140 in. We bought a PT-22, a Ryan, an old Army surplus. And
that always sounds like bad news.
Well, no, it was great. It was a Fairchild, and that was the sweetest, smoothest controls ever. It was the only stick airplane I ever had. And that thing was a dream to fly. But it would fly 90 miles an hour. It would take off at 90 miles an hour, and it would land at 90 miles an hour. And you didn't have any room because it would stall right below that, but it wouldn't fly any faster than that.
Okay.
And but boy, it was smooth. It was a dream to fly, and that's the one that took Jay up in, and as long before he was a helicopter pilot in the Army. And it had the cockpits that slide back, So we got all buckled in and stuff, and I guess I didn't pay enough attention because he didn't buckle up. He didn't put on his safety belt. So we're up flying around, and I decided to do a hammerhead stall. And he almost fell out of that thing when it went over backwards, and it just go over and peel over and stalls out, and it just falls over backwards, And I didn't know he didn't have enough sense to put his seatbelt on. Anyway, that was kind of scary for him.
Well, you do just...
I didn't know about it until later.
Brace himself.
Yeah,
He's your brother. How much younger is he than you?
Oh, he's younger than Jack.
15 years.
I don't know. He served in the Vietnam War. He was a helicopter pilot there.
So he doesn't.
He still wanted to get in the plane after that?
So he doesn't buckle in.
No, he didn't buckle in.
Yeah.
Did he tell you that after you got back?
Yeah, well, I just picked up some speed, and then I went straight up until it ran out of power and stalled. And it starts to slide back, and then it falls over sideways, one side or the other. And then you put it in. Well, you put it, first thing you do is you put it into a dive.
Oh my gosh.
because you got to have flying speed.
He did it once when B and Ben were in the
Oh my
plane.
gosh.
That's why.
My mom didn't kill you for that?
That's
I never told her.
that's
figure it
why
out now.
people used to die in stalls all the time, and then nowadays they don't teach stalls to students anymore. It's crazy. But you have to, when it peels off, you just let everything go. Let the airplane have its head, and it'll stop spinning. It starts to spin, but then it'll straighten out while you kick left rudder or right rudder, whichever way you're starting to spin, because it goes into stall and then it goes into a spin, and then you can't get it out of the spin, and you keep fighting it and you crash. But if you give it its head, then it'll straighten out some and start to dive, and once you pick up flying speed, you can pull it out of the dive and start flying. And
Yeah, I wanted to vomit.
Yeah.
So
anyway,
That takes some guts to
that
actually.
used to be fun. We did that with the
That
Mooney
used
one
to be
time. We were
fun.
coming in from. Oh, I didn't. Oh, you asked about the rabbit
hunting.
hunting. Yeah, we traded that Fairchild in and got a. Some guy wanted a. He was an aerial photographer. He wanted an airplane that he could cut a hole in the bottom and take pictures.
Oh.
And that old Fairchild was a low-wing airplane, so it was perfect for what he wanted. So he traded, my memory, I think that's when we got the 140. No. We traded, we traded the 140 in for a Mooney. But anyway, when we had the Tri-Pacer, it was a little stub wing. And I loved that little airplane. A lot of people didn't like them, but it was a great airplane. You could just, out there, Page, we'd go rabbit hunting. We'd go out in the desert. We'd go out to trading posts out where there was no runways or nothing, and we go out there to buy meat and stuff. We would, when they had the movies out there, we were making the 10 Commandments or something like that. And we'd fly out to the movie site and get out.
Really?
Get out and go get spit on by the camels. They like to spit at you, Anyway, we could go out there and land on dirt roads anywhere, and just at the movie place where they had all of this, the whole operation, we had to take off. You had to go get up to a certain speed, and then you had to make a turn because it wasn't straight, so we would go as fast as we could make that corner, and then we make that corner, and then we pour the coal to it, and had enough room then on that dirt road to get off the ground. And
were there times where you had to just drive off of a cliff?
no, there's a time when I had this crazy kid with me that I used to, every time I'd take him up, we'd scare him. You'd think he'd get used to it, His name was Gale, and I don't remember his last name, but there was a time when we landed at a trading post out there in the desert where there was an airport there. It was just a little run strip for the trading post. But the wind blows a lot out there.
What do you mean by trading post?
Navajo trading post, the Indians. And so we went out there and we landed. The thing just stopped. It was sand.
Oh.
The wind had blown the runway, covered. They were all dirt runways, covered over with sand. And so the two guys with me, well, Mom was with us, and somebody else, Gail. Maybe Mom was the only other one. Anyway, they had to get out and push on the wing struts, hard as they could push, and I had to give that thing full power to get it to move in that sand. So we finally got it off the runway and onto our road. Well, we were at the trading post there then, but there was no way to take off.
Yeah.
Because sand, you're not going nowhere with it bogged down like that. So when we got done at the trading post, loaded up our meat and stuff, we taxied down this road, I don't know, must have been 3-4 miles. And there, to find a place to take off. And the road was straight enough several times, but there's a bank on one side, so you couldn't risk it because you're running so close to the bank, you'd probably hit it. So once we got out of the ridge, across a ridge like that, then there was straight shot. And so we took off on that. Well, now the rim of the Colorado River's coming up in front of us because we went down into this hole, you know, down to, so we're flying right straight for this bluff way up there. Well, Gail's back there and he starts getting anxious, complaining, you know, what are we going to do? I said, well, I don't know. I don't know if we're going to get over that or not. We'll try. So we flew right into that bluff, and I turned down the river, of course. and he's screaming and hollering. Oh, he's scared. Another time we were going to Flagstaff with a tri-pacer, and it was real rough riding a little stubby airplane, and the wind was blowing so bad. It's the same day that the 172 wrecked out, tried to land at Gray Mountain because he was afraid to go to Flagstaff. The wind was so bad, gusts and crosswind. Well, most of us had on, but it was like 30-mile gusts, and the airspeed indicator go up, you know, like jumping 30 miles at a time and then let off. And he got sick in the back of the airplane, and I had one sick sack, only one. So he's vomiting and throwing up in that bag, and Julie and Martha were back there with him, and they got sick. Well, riding back there with a stench in that airplane, the guy throwing up. And then they had to share that bag, and that made me sick almost. Mom's the only one that didn't. I got squeamish. I didn't get really sick and throw up, but it was getting bad.
Yeah, Ben had to use the puke bag.
Oh, he did?
Anyway, we got into Flagstaff. And,
well, yeah, if you're doing this.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, then Grandpa's like, maybe don't tell your mom we did that. I should probably stop doing that.
I think Katie only got to ride once. When we were married, we got to go up in the plane.
We were newlyweds. Like literally on
Yeah, that was down at Shasta.
Yeah, that was down there. It was cool to go see the mountain.
Finish telling me.
It was so hot, we tried to go to the top of Shasta that day, and it was just working the airplane tour. Well, anyway, we got into Flagstaff, and I'm carrying a little extra speed but I don't want to run too fast in the wind. And it got down to the runway, and the needle is doing this, you know. Mm-hmm. And we have a pretty good headwind, so I come down and make my landing. Just touched down. Just touched the asphalt, and the wind quit. And the airplane stopped. Oh. Right there. We had just enough forward speed to compensate for that wind gust, and it stopped. It didn't roll from here to the living room in there. That happened to me one time at Hood River one night. I came in there. We lost our generator. We lost all our power and everything. I guess we had a broken belt that drove the alternator, I guess. I don't remember exactly. Came into Hood River to spend the night because didn't have lights, didn't have no way to get over here to Portland. And it was stormy, so when we left Salem, we had to go way around. I was going to sneak in the back door. But just touched the runway and it stopped. But that was a steady wind. It made it simple. That's the landings I like when you touch down. You don't have to fight anything. You're there.
How many close calls did you have?
Well, I've got you, and I've got Brian, and I've got your dad.
Har, har, har.
Got a few.
A few calls in his life.
Close calls.
Well, I've had a few, honey.
Yeah.
Fran and I were trying to sneak into Fort Jones one day. We called Jack. He was up home at what's the weather like up there? You know, back in those days, weather reporting was nothing. It was useless. Mm-hmm. You just have to guess. So we called him up. How's the weather? And we didn't have cell phones then either. And he goes out and takes a look, and he says, well, you got 300 or 400 feet of ceiling, you know. Yeah. And it was just foggy in the valley. So, well, if we had 300 or 400 feet, I could go down to lower end of the valley and fly straight up the valley, you know, and I figure I'll just go up there and I'll let down through it, and then I can see the ground. That's happened a few times where we did things like that. Fran was with me, Uncle Fran, and so we jumped in an airplane and took off because we had, the fog should continue to raise, you know, once it starts burning off. And we flew up there and got down to the end of the valley and set a heading for the airport. And see, in that airplane we had quite a bit of instrumentation, you know, so we could tell a little more about where we're at. And we're doing pretty good, and I'm down below 400 feet, and I'm not seeing any ground. And I said to Fran, what? He's looking for the ground over on his side. And he says, I don't know. He said, but we just flew by a tree. And I said, enough of this. I climbed out and went back to Happy Camp and landed the airplane.
Yeah.
Called Jack, and he says, man, he says, 5 minutes after you called, it just socked in. It just came down to the ground. And there's no way to get a hold of anybody, you know. We didn't have
Just
it.
flew past a tree. That could have been bad.
Yeah, that was close.
Yeah.
That's as close as I ever got, probably.
And Grandma didn't mind you?
Didn't tell her.
Oh.
She
Why?
wasn't. She wasn't with
Keep
us.
those things
Yeah.
quiet.
And then there was we got lost one night out in the desert, but that was because, that wasn't my fault. That was because the wind was blowing too hard.
Of course it was.
And anyway, you know, we were practicing instruments out in the desert, going to Page and
Who were you with?
Jay. He was just a kid then, and
Yeah. No, he flew.
yeah, he flew later on.
Vietnam and
Okay.
He joined the Air Force and went to Vietnam and learned to fly helicopters. You know that Google Jay
'cause
Lane
he got your-
sometime,
yeah.
and it'll put you right through. He got all those medals and stuff that we went to Salt Lake for him to be presented with them.
Yeah.
And no, Jack wouldn't believe him that he had all these. He got shot down 3 times or something like that.
Oh.
Yeah, 3 times. Anyway, he had medals that he never got, but they gave them to him later, you know.
Yeah.
Because when he did he got shot down his last time, then his buddy that was flying with him, they flew in pairs, swooped in and picked him up, and they got out of there. And, of course, his helicopter was burning by then. And I'm getting old. I lost my track there. Anyway,
So they gave him the medals later?
because that was one of his last flights that he had to do, he was getting sent home. And they said, well, if you want to stick around for a couple of days, we'll have it here and we'll present it. He said, no thanks, boys. I'm going home. So he did. How many times have you heard stories about guys that stuck around for one more mission? And that was their last.
Yeah.
So
So
he went home without his medal and then he forgot about it. But he had several medals.
yeah. So when you were talking about, you know, the trading post and buying meat, what meat did you buy?
Beef.
Beef?
Yeah.
And that was from the Indians.
Yeah.
They would raise cattle.
Yeah, they had cattle and horses and all that stuff.
What else could you get? Could you get
I don't think so.
nothing?
I don't know. We just went out there and bought beef. That's all we were interested in.
You'd go shoot rabbits with.
Well, yeah, we'd take the little tri-pacer. We'd go out and good rabbit.
Jackrabbits and
Well, no, jackrabbits aren't good to eat. Cottontails. Of course, we'd shoot jackrabbits, but they had boils and stuff. You know, they weren't.
Ew.
yeah.
They weren't ever very healthy.
So you'd eat the cottontails?
Oh yeah, they're good.
How many rabbits did you guys eat?
Well, they're just what we could shoot, but there was a time when Mom, before Judy was born, that we lived over in Python, New Mexico, and that's what we ate was rabbits and biscuits, and that's about it, and gravy. I remember Mom baked her first cake when we were over there living in Python. And I remember that I couldn't eat it. Frosting was about half-inch thick. It was so hard you couldn't bite it. And I remember Jack and Janice, my two younger siblings, they were over there too. Mom and Dad, we were all over there. And they took a hammer and broke that frosting up and ate it for hard candy. That was her first attempt at baking a cake. But when we got married, she knew how to make bear soup.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, she told me about the bear soup she knew how to make. She didn't cook much of it, didn't know much anything else about cooking. So one night she made bear soup, and what she had some, I think she stirred up some dumplings or something, made dumplings out of flour, and then poured milk in it and stuff and heated it up. That's your bear soup.
A different kind of bear soup, huh?
Well,
Now,
I think back in Oklahoma they called it bear soup because it was just barely soup. Or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Anyway, I was kind of surprised because my mom was such a good cook, you know.
Yeah.
But she took us both in and taught Mom how to cook. She taught her how to take care of babies. She taught her everything. I always said that, made a joke that I married her and then raised her, you know.
Yeah.
The truth is I married her, Mom raised both of us.
Yeah, that's probably more accurate.
So.
Now, didn't you win a contest or something for skinning?
Oh, yeah, I
Was
got
it rabbits or goats?
No,
or?
it was goats. My grandfather used
Okay.
to have thousands upon thousands of goats back before the war when goats, Angora hair, you know, they sheared them like they do sheep nowadays. The goats, everything was made out of wool and Angora hair. And then when the war was here, during the war, they developed synthetics. And they quit making stuff out of Angora hair. So he had these thousands of goats. That's what caused him to get the Malta fever, was his goats. He bought some goats, some bucks, from the Malta Islands up in Alaska somewhere. Anyway, they were carriers of that disease. Anyway, he had all these goats, and they weren't shearing goats anymore because there was no market for the hair. You know, Angoras had that long hair, and so there was no market for the hair, and so they were slaughtering the goats, and selling them, and making hamburger. You know, they were peddling a lot of the meat out on the reservation to the Indians. I remember my dad, when he couldn't walk or get around very good, he was out there driving around selling goat meat out on the reservation. And a lot of the goats were coming into a little cubbyhole between my uncle's feed store, Purina feed store, and Joe Allen had a grocery store, and right in between there was a little cubbyhole place. And so we were boning goats in it. Boning them, that means you throw that goat in the locker in the freezer and get a goat out and throw him on the table and sharpen up your knife and cut all the meat off the bones, and they'd mix it with fat and beef and stuff and make hamburger out of it. Anyway, I got in trouble. What did I get in trouble for? Anyway, my dad, I think he thrashed me good, number one. No, he didn't, because I was in the 9th grade then. I don't remember what it was. I think I didn't pay attention. I parked this wheelbarrow by the fire where I dumped it to burn the trash, and a tire caught on fire. And it was pretty fancy back in those days to have a rubber-tired wheelbarrow. Anyway, I got punished for, no, it was for shooting streetlights out this. I got in trouble.
Right.
Yeah, we
got that part.
My buddies and
Oh,
I,
yeah, that's right.
we went
You
out one
told me
night and
this
shot
story.
out all the streetlights in town. And that's what it
Who
was
does
for.
that?
And you got caught.
I guess it is kind of fun to see him
Oh,
explode.
No, they
You know-
didn't get caught. He had to turn himself in.
No,
didn't you?
No, what happened? We didn't get them all. We shot out 46. Anyway, we were just leaving town, and the cops got us. Anyway, I got in trouble with that, so my dad made me go after school every night down to the butcher shop, and I had to bone goats until 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock at night, every night, except nights when I had to, well, I still, on top of that, I had to milk the cows and stuff. Night and morning, we had chores to do. Anyway, that's what you're talking about. We had a contest one time, who could bone out a goat, and I was fast by then. 6 minutes. I beat them all, man. 6 minutes, and I cut every piece of meat that comes off for hamburger.
Wow.
I've seen them do that at like when I toured some meat packing plants and stuff. All these knives and.
Seems like it'd be impossible, but that's what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, did you guys...
That's where my dad got me in a fight.
Yeah?
Yeah. That was stupid old man. Not really, but I don't know if you want to hear that story or not.
Yeah.
He got into it too before it was over. We were in there boning goats, minding my business, and he's there, and there's this big Mexican kid that just moved here from Mexico that I went to school with, Luis Hernandez. And that kid was tough. And he was out on the sidewalk, and Davy DeWiggins was out on the sidewalk. And I was in there.
Who comes up with these names?
I can remember things back. I just can't remember things.
I know, but
anyway, I'll never forget Louis. I didn't want to fight Louis. Louis was the last person on earth I wanted to fight. Anyway, Davey had got some candy there at the grocery store, and Louis was pestering him, trying to make him give it to him, and giving him a hard time. And Davey was just a little guy for his age even, you know. And my dad pipes up and says, "Why don't you pick on somebody your own age, boy?" He didn't know who Louis was. He was just out there because he lived in the house behind the store. And he said, "Well, you get somebody my size. Pick on somebody your own size," he told him. "You get somebody my size, and I will." Joe, he says, "Come out here and whip this black bastard." It's just the way he said it. Oh. I didn't want that assignment, but I knew he would.
Is it your dad or Louis?
Louis. Either one. It was worse to face Dad than if I refused.
Right.
So I went out there, and we went at it for a long time. I was bloody, because he was bleeding. His nose was bleeding and stuff, and we were both so tired to just hang on to each other, you know. And he's taller than me, so he'd hang his head over my shoulder, you know, and he was spurting blood out of his nose, and my T-shirt was just total red on the backside. Anyway, that went on for a while, and then pretty quick, here comes Louis' older brother, grown man. He comes running around the corner, and he ran up and sparred off with my dad, you know, and they went at it. And Dad's mean when it comes to fighting. And they had fought down toward the corner right there, and he picked, I can't remember Louis, I don't know if I knew his name, I did then, but anyway, Dad picked him up. He was strong, and he walked over to the fire plug, and he was going to kill him, probably, cripple him up bad. Louis broke loose from me and whirled around and hit Dad behind the head, right here in the neck, and he overshot the fire plug, thank goodness. And then my dad says, "Joe," what did he say? He told me to whip that so-and-so or I'm going to whip you, you know. So I'm back at it, working hard. And then there was a car came down the road, because we'd been fighting for half an hour by then.
Yeah.
And this car came down and stopped right out in the middle of the street, and the guy jumped out and ran over there. He had a suit on. He pulled his coat back, and he had a badge. And by then my dad had the guy, he had his one arm was back there. He had him like that, and he had his had a hold of his belt, so the guy couldn't get loose, and he was just working on his ribs, which is a pretty bad place to be in with that old man. And the guy pulled back his coat, showed him a badge, and said, "Let him go." And he reached in, got him by the hair, and jerked him over backwards, and cussed him out, and told him to get back out there in the alley where they belonged. And really, it wasn't. Well, it was their fault, but it wasn't. I mean, it was just a friendly argument, I guess. Anyway, I still had to face Louis. I knew that coming up, but nothing ever came of it. I think he'd had enough, and I'd had enough.
Yeah.
And so we went back to school together, and no problems. So, yeah, that was my dad. He told Jack one time, Jack had this little Richie guy that would, don't remember his last name, his first name was Richie, and every time we'd get off the school bus, Richie would sit up front, and he'd run down the stairs, the steps of the school bus, and stop just outside, and then he'd chase Jack all the way down to the end of the street where we left the main road, and then we went through the Wood Star House, and Jack would run from him.
Sounds like Jack and running from the bear, too.
Yeah. Well, anyway, Dad told Jack, said, finally got enough. He told me, let that happen again. He says, when you get home, I'm going to whoop you, and you're not going to, I don't know how he put it, but anyway, it's going to be a lot worse than if Richie catches you. So the next day at school, Jack rode up front, close up to the front of the bus, and when the bus stopped, Jack jumped out down the steps, come up steps out of the school bus, turned around and hit Richie with his lunch bucket. And he just decked him, and he pounded on him with his lunch bucket until Jerry and I pulled him off.
Oh, man.
And he never was afraid of Richie after that, or anybody else, pretty much. But Dad would. He would have whooped him if he hadn't have done it.
But all you boys fought all the time.
No.
No?
I avoided all the fights I could. I never liked to fight. I never lost very many.
Yeah.
But I didn't like doing it. There was a time or two I was young and I was strong and I was tough and get into the heat of a fight, and I kind of enjoyed doing the work, But every time I would fight with a kid at school or anywhere, I would hurt them, and I would feel bad. I would feel bad for that person. He was hurt, and my feelings were hurt. You can't beat somebody up and then cry over it, though,
Yeah.
So, I never was a person that was eager to have a fight. But I got into them. The fights in the Mexicans there in Clemenceau, there in Scott Valley, where I met Mom, Not Scott Valley, that was Birdie Valley. That's where it was.
I'm going to tell the story of Jack and the bear. You need to tell
Jack and the bear. You guys have heard that one.
Yeah, tell me the story.
You want to hear it?
I don't know. We've heard it recently.
Well, Joel told a different version. His version is we went out chasing bear. We left him in the car, which we did, and his version is true, but he was just a little boy, and he thought we were serious. We told him, we're going to go catch that bear and bring him back. You stay there because we're going to throw him in the back seat, and you're going to have to hold him down.
This is Uncle Joe.
And anyway, Joe tells that story now, and I guess his version is right because I remember teasing him all the time.
I tell my daughters the same thing.
Gee, I wonder where he gets it from, Grandpa.
Anyway,
he really thought you were going to put the bear back there, right? And he was going to
these bear would come down to the dump, right there in Trinity Center. We were falling timber over there. They were cutting the whole basin out for the dam to make a lake. And so people had all moved out, and there were vacant houses. In fact, that's what we lived in when we were over there working. Just vacant houses. People had vacated, except when we lived down in the nudist colony, and then we lived in tents. We did.
What?
it was vacated too. So there was a
we
nudist.
lived in a nudist colony.
So
That's
so
new.
is the clothing.
There was a nudist colony that went underwater too. But they had moved out, but they left their tents. They are all walled up floors.
Yeah.
They were nice. Anyway, we took the dogs. We had this old dog we called Leo. The reason I called him Leo is because we found him. He was lost.
Yeah.
And your Aunt Mary used to have a husband named Leo. And Leo was always lost. We'd take him out to fight fire with us. We'd be out on the fire trail, and Jack and I would hike ahead of him, and he'd be plodding along back there looking at the ground. And we stopped one day to wait for him, and we just sat down back on the grass and a little slope by this old road we were on. And he's coming up through there just talking to himself. This is a bitch, he says. And he was just kidding. He was so... And then he looked up, and he couldn't see us. He had walked right by us. He couldn't see us, and he panicked. We had to run him down, man. He threw down all this equipment he was packing and everything, and he just panicked and started running up the hillside. Left the road, and where are you guys at? Screaming and hollering. He was crazy. Anyway, he was lost all the time. But then there was, when we were out there driving the roads from Reading up to Trinity Center one day, we found this old hound dog, a blue tick hound that was lost. He was up on the bank, and he was looking at the cars going by. So we stopped and called him, and he came hopped in. We took him and kept him for a long, long time. I had that dog. But he was the one that we turned loose at the dump for the bear. Him and Jack's dog, Spike. Jack's dog was half, I guess, husky, and there was a little bit of coyote in that dog because we used to have a half-breed called Lady that burned up in a house fire. She was the smartest animal on earth. Anyway, we took Leo home, and we chased a few cats and things with him, and Spike would go along and bark, and Leo would bay, and about the time we'd get to the tree where they had the cat tree, the cat would jump out, and we never could catch them. They'd go somewhere else. Anyway, this day we took him to the dump, let him out of the car, and they went down there, both of them went down there, and the bear took off. There's several bears. Anyway, they went down across the Trinity River. It was about that deep.
2 feet.
Yeah, it was wide, but
shallow.
At that spot, it was shallow. And so we went down there, and my Volkswagen, we drove it across. Maybe it wasn't quite that deep.
Foot.
But put, and the wheels just sparked spinning because the car was sort of floating. It was those bugs, how they were watertight and they'd float. And it would turn upstream and just keep clawing. And we'd get to the other side, and we left the car there at the foot of the hill and went up on top. The dogs were up there with the bear, and they had stopped. So we're going up the hill to see what they had. Well, we got up there, and the hill was pretty steep, but then it got up where it leveled off. It wasn't level, but it was pretty nice, slope. And I got there way ahead of Jack. Or not way ahead, I guess, but I got there ahead of him, and the bear is just standing there. And he's not paying any attention to the dogs, but they won't attack him. They're just standing behind him, baying and barking. And you know what baying is. Anyway, I just stopped up where I could see them, and there they are. And I hollered down to Jack. I said, "Hey, Jack, here they are. They're right here. Come on up." And the bear heard me. And he goes, he did it on the right side, but he goes,
just turned a little.
Real slow. He turned his head, looked down along his side, and he saw me. And I guess he kind of had to focus because he just looked at me for a minute, and his mouth opened about a yard wide. He reared up on his hind legs and spun around and charged me. And I'm about, probably not over 100 feet or two behind him. Scared me so bad. I'm Talk about not wanting to fight. I didn't know. That bear scared me so bad. You've seen pictures in comics where the hair stood up on the guy's. Every hair on my body, I felt it. But all I could do was run.
Yeah.
And I whirled and ran. There was a tree just about 10 feet. I ran around that tree figuring, maybe I can go around the tree. I don't know what I was going to do. Anyway, when the bear charged me, the dogs nailed him.
Yeah.
Started biting him on the hind legs and stuff. And he turned around to fight them, and then he ran off side hill and went up a tree and sat on a big burl that was up there. So now I'm
now you're getting brave.
I'm brave now. Because and Jack, here's the hilarious part. Just as the bear charged Jack, I just topped far enough to see him. And here he comes. He went down that mountain. I'm telling you, I think rocks were flying in all directions. Mowing down trees. He was back down to the river by the time I saw the bear over there, and by the time the bear went up the tree, and it looked like it was safe. And so I can get brave. It's like, hey, Jack, he's up a tree. Come on up and look at him. No, he said, you come on down. I said, no, really, Jack. I said, there's nothing to worry about. Come on up. Come on up. The dogs have got him treed. And, no, you come down here. And so he did that for a couple of passes back and forth. Finally, he says, well, I wasn't going down because I was brave. And he wasn't coming up because he wasn't. And anyway, finally he says, well, I have an idea. I said, what's your idea? He said, you come down here, and we'll go home and get a gun and come back. So he never did come up that hill. Actually, when the bear started backing down the tree, I started backing down the hill.
Yeah.
But when he got down, he didn't pay any attention to me from that point on. He just went across hill and went through a little valley to another little ridge, and the dogs are behind him, baying and barking, and I didn't see. Spike came home that night, and Leo came home about 2 weeks later. That old hound wouldn't quit, man. He wouldn't quit. He came home and he looked like a gutted snowbird. He was so
skinny,
slim and skinny, and he just chased that bear, I guess, until I don't know what happened. Maybe a hunter found him and shot the bear.
Man.
I don't know, but that was the ugliest big old cinnamon bear.
A cinnamon bear?
He had it chewed off in fights. One ear was half gone, and he just looked bad. He was ugly. But he had a big roar. I can tell you that.
And when they pop their jaws, it's pretty frightening. So, there's a lot of, I've hunted out here a lot, and we hunt, every chance we get with bows and arrows and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But when you guys were younger, did people hunt that much, or?
We hunted to eat.
Mm-hmm.
I shouldn't even tell it, but I killed over 100 deer 1 year over there in that valley because there was a lot of us over there.
This is in Arizona?
No, that was in Northern California. And the reason we did is I did all of the hunting for everybody, and there were 3 or 4 families, and the deer weren't very big, and there was a multitude of them. They were everywhere. In fact, there were so many deer there that every 7 years they would develop some kind of a disease and die off.
These were blacktail, right?
And that's what
you're talking about,
the
Montague
Indians
area?
Yeah.
Didn't the Indians, you said the Indians?
Yeah, the Indians said when that first happened, the first time I saw it happen, these deer would be laying under an oak tree or something out there in the field.
Mm-hmm.
You could walk right up to them. They couldn't get up. They just stiffened up and couldn't move. They wanted to run. And the Indians in the area, we had an old Indian guy. He was 70 years old, and we hired him to come and help us fall trees because he was an old-time faller, and we got into a patch of timber that was so horrendously tall. I was almost scared of it, and I was a faller, so I went and got help. And old Al Bursell was his name, and that man, he was a timber faller. He taught me more than I thought I knew a lot. Man, when he got to him, I did know a lot. But anyway.
But he was from an Indian tribe? Then?
Yes.
Huh.
And those deer, they die off. Not all of them, but hundreds of them would die in those times. And the Indians claim that every 7 years that happens. And they said it's because they're overpopulated. I have no idea why. But
What year was this?
it was a year that probably close to the time Evie was born, or your mom.
So it was the
period.
50s.
50s, 60s.
Yeah. And everybody ate deer meat that wanted it.
Yeah.
They were everywhere all the time.
It's interesting because, there's a lot of other species where there weren't as many deer. Like mule deer struggled in some populations, but you still see these old photos of these giant deer from the 50s and 60s that...
Well, these were small deer, but I love deer meat.
Venison's good.
I could eat a whole deer tomorrow if I had it.
So you guys ate a lot of deer meat for years, didn't you?
Yeah. You had to fight pinworms a lot, but
Yeah.
but it was good meat. Yeah.
So you think the pinworms came from the deer?
No,
Yeah.
it's on your...
Yep. That's what they said. That's what the doctors and everybody around said. Pinworms aren't all that bad. You're never constipated.
How did you treat pinworms back then?
Well, they had
Just
some
dewormer?
They had some green liquid in a bottle and get it at the doctor's office. And
They cure all
it.
kinds of things. You just take that green liquid.
and they get rid of them real easy.
Yeah.
But the trick is get rid of them and stay rid of them. You got to do your laundry really good. And,
right.
Because...
We're going to cut this part out.
Why?
Gross.
So did they basically just hunted to eat in that area? Was there any?
Oh, they had season.
Was there people that hunted for sport, to speak?
Yeah, and they still do. Yeah, there's a lot of sport hunting and that.
And would they be mad at the people that would go get?
They might. I didn't ask them.
Oh.
I hunted for food. And we were logging, and so every night on the way home, every morning going to where we were going to go to work, there were deer everywhere, and you just carried your gun and you saw a knife and you took it.
Now, did you ever have any run-in with the Fish and Game then? Or down?
Yeah, we had deer meat one time when we lived at Marvin's Pond, and Helen Mello, our neighbor, she's a nice old lady, or not old lady. She was about my age, I guess. Anyway, she was a busybody, and Helen drowned at that place.
My mom.
Yeah, and Marvin's Pond, that's where she drowned, and Mom finally found her on the bottom of the pond and
Give her mouth to mouth.
Well, she pumped it out more than anything.
Yeah.
And
good thing she was a lifeguard.
Yeah. She saved Helen's life, and she saved Joe's life, but he got hung. Martha hung him, helped him. Anyway, Helen...
It's a wonder your kids are alive today.
Helen Mello turned me in. And then she got feeling bad and ran over and told me.
Oh.
Turned you in for poaching, basically.
Yeah. And she felt bad about doing it, so she ran over there and told me. So I took the meat, went out in the woodshed, and I had wood stacked up about 8 feet high or 10, all sawed up and ricked up, So I tore the wood pile down about 4 feet down into the wood pile and put the meat there, stuck the wood all back up nice and neat, and put a row or two in front of it. And they came out there just not too long after I got that chore taken care of. And they came out and they searched the place like crazy. And they even went in that woodshed. Who would think they'd go in there and tear down my woodpile? They got right down to the last layer before they got to the meat and quit. I was so mad at them. I was always planning to go get a goat and kill it and hang it in my basement and then have somebody turn me in, but I never did do it. but I should have, you know. I don't know. We used to, one time my brother came up there, and he wanted to go out and get some meat. Well, sometimes we'd go out in the spotlight and just get whatever we wanted, because there were always tons of them out there. We went up to this little place that Jack and I had rented. We were trying to grow some wheat up there, a little meadow. We drove out in the meadow, and Jerry was sitting in, I was standing in the back of the pickup, and Jerry was driving it, you know. He wanted to see some, so we went up there. No, he was using the spotlight. I guess Jack was driving. I was standing up in back with a .22 rifle, and he put the light on one, and I downed it. He swung around and looked at another, and I shot it. And he looked, after I shot poor deer, he turned the light off. He was the butcher, man. He was good as a butcher, skinner and everything. He probably was thinking, oh gosh, I'm going to have skin all this.
Yeah.
But we didn't ever waste any of it. We harvested it. That's what you guys do, isn't it?
Yeah, we do it with a license and a tag, but...
What's that? No, those were the days. Those, you know, life was different then.
Yeah.
You know, they didn't even take your gun away from you back then.
Yeah.
You know.
What did they do if they did actually catch somebody?
They'd fine you, and a few years later they'd start confiscating your weapon, your gun, but nobody.
It's definitely a softer approach back then.
Oh yeah. Well, people, you know, even law enforcement knew that people are hungry and they wanted to eat. Yeah. There was not a lot of
jobs, and
the reason we had work is because we worked hard to get work, and we worked hard to do what we did. And
you're the hardest worker I know.
There was a lot of
not anymore.
There was
still
there was a lot of manual labor in those years.
Oh yeah.
For you guys.
Yeah, that's why all my joints wore out. That's why I have artificial shoulders and artificial hips. And if this medicine keeps making me feel better that I've been taking, I'm going to think about getting my knee, because it's really bad. It'll sometimes, I'll get down on my knees and say my prayers. And I get up, my knee goes, you know, it grinds bone on bone. And the doctor looked at it. Last time I was there, I told you what he said. He said, you don't have no whatever left. He had a name for it. He felt it some more and said, man, you really, that's bad. You don't have it.
I think it's the meniscus.
Yeah,
cartilage.
Whatever. He says,
I think so.
He said, well, I'm going to increase your Vicodin dosage. That's all he said.
Here, I'll just give you some more.
It's pain management now, Grandpa. It's not about fixing you.
You're too old to fix?
Say what?
You're too old to fix?
Well, yeah, but he's a pain clinic. He's not a fixer. Although he did fix my back pretty good. They went down in my back and killed the nerves, and so I still have the problem, but I don't feel the pain. So
He's a pain clinic.
so
Wow.
yeah.
So but you know, when I was a kid, you took me hunting.
Yeah, you have a pretty wild story about that hunting. That hunt, I don't recognize some of the story, but it was.
I just remember when you cut the seatbelt with a knife.
Well, you couldn't get the dang thing off. The deer out there, these guys are shooting at it. None of them can hit it.
That's right.
There's several deer out there, and they can't shoot nothing. And I can't. This old Volkswagen What was it? It was a Volkswagen.
Some kind of like rabbit. Volkswagen rabbit.
It was a little fancier than a rabbit. A Volkswagen something. Anyway,
This is back in the day when the seatbelt
seatbelt
on the
runs up
shoulder
automatic.
strap would come up for you over your shoulder.
Oh,
so
yeah.
when you got in the car,
And when you open the door,
it would go down.
It wouldn't go down. I don't remember.
So we opened the door. Well, Uncle Lloyd and Bill are out there banging away at
I took
these deer in
Brian.
the field.
I took Brian because his uncles wouldn't do it, and his dad had to work all the time.
Yeah.
So,
and I really wanted to go hunting.
And I wasn't going hunting, but I decided I will go, and I'll take Brian.
To make a point.
Yeah,
So-
we made a point.
So I go with Grandpa, but there was this dude that worked for Grandpa who was a big, hairy man. Like,
his name was Alan Bird.
and all I remember was he looked like a big, hairy bear, like so much hair on
More
his
than
body.
Uncle Bill?
Yeah,
I was like,
yeah, he was worse than Uncle Bill.
he's a hairy dude, but super nice
Sweater
guy.
weather?
Super
Maybe he
nice.
was Bigfoot.
So it was Grandpa and the hairy guy, and
You brought Bigfoot
I was
with
in the
you.
back seat, and but I remember, Uncle Lloyd and Uncle Bill were banging away at these deer, boom, boom, and they were running through this field. And Grandpa was trying to get out, and the seat belt, I don't know why,
I don't know why it hung up.
but it was hung up, wouldn't let him out, and I just saw him yank a knife out of his boot, whoop, slice the belt, stand out, take the gun out, boom, and the deer dropped.
Show these boys how it's done, huh?
It was pretty cool.
Yeah, I bet.
So what'd they do
Uncle Lloyd and
when you dropped the deer? Did they say anything?
Well, I don't remember, but they probably tried to say they had it or something.
I do remember we did walk up, and so this is, I seen deer shot with a bow. Dad bow hunted, but he didn't really rifle hunt. So this was kind of new for me. The gun,
How old were you?
carnage with a gun.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know,
It's more humane.
10 or 11. It was, but one of the deer had been hit in the back. So it was spine, so it was laying there, and the back half was down, and the top half was up. And we walked over there, and we were getting up close to it, and you could, the rest of them were down, but this one was suffering. Couldn't see it till you got right on top of it, and it was like, whoa, there he was. And one of the uncles pulled his gun up and took aim, shot at it, and missed it. And I just remember Grandpa making fun of him for a while, and me being like 9 or 10,
Not
just
Grandpa.
It changes at close range
Did
like
you ever
that.
try to kill a deer with a rock?
no.
You made me think about it. The spine was cut on a deer, and the deer couldn't get up, and it was bellowing and hollering. And I was trying to kill it with a rock, and I didn't want to shoot again because people were living right down there, and they could hear everything, and I couldn't kill that deer hardly.
Yeah.
I had a kid that I played football with him in Utah that he didn't kill it on purpose with a rock, but he was throwing rocks at a deer and actually hit it, and it went down.
Really?
Killed it.
I did
He
that.
hit what he was aiming for, and
I did that.
evidently it was not, we were only 14, 15,
I did that with a dog one time, but
and so
didn't kill it though. Actually, the dog laid there in the road for a while and got up and left.
But yeah, sometimes when you shoot close like that, I know in Utah, I had one little buck that was close. It was probably 20, 30 yards, and I kept, the first time I shot, and I was like, must have went over. Thing just stood there.
Yeah.
So I reloaded and lowered and hit it the second time. But evidently it was too close because it took forever to find it. Probably stepped on it a few times, but we eventually found it.
Good.
But it was because the rifle was in. It was set up for a longer
If you're
shot.
trying to beat a deer to death with a rock, and all it will do is bellow and bawl and carry on. I didn't know deer could do that much.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
And you got the crazy Bill Crawford down there living in a tent with his parents and stuff, not too far below, and he's yelling, "Shoot it again!" shoot it again. And I'm not wanting to because
he's down there.
it's too close to civilization, and I'm poaching the deer.
Yeah.
And man, oh man, I could have killed him. But I just about missed it. Cut its backbones, you know.
Yeah.
Couldn't use its hind legs. I'll tell you, one of the toughest things, my brother and his buddy Larry Wright, going up Oak Creek Canyon one night, and they got a big buck in the headlights of the car, and they jumped out, and they're gonna get this deer. And before that deer let them go, they wish they had never got out of the car.
Really?
Oh, they're mean. I mean, they can fight, and they shouldn't have been. They got drunk all the time, and they do stuff like that. But a deer can be vicious, really, if they're going to fight
They
you.
usually get you with their front feet.
Yeah, they.
Yeah, but I've seen 'em.
Luckily, they don't get you. Well, usually with the antlers, but
I mean, they'll gore people sometimes. I mean, they got a lot of weapons up there if they just.
If they thought about using them,
Mm-hmm.
but they strike with their feet, but their feet are sharp.
Yeah.
the moose will use they'll use the head.
I ran onto a moose one time. The only one I ever got close to was, we went to Alaska, and I've told you about this story. We went up there, and it was too early for construction, and Julia and Martha were both babies. And so we took a job at a gold mine where they did hydraulic mining, and we went up there to make the big money, but we were working for $1.63 an hour. And that was back when, in that town of Fairbanks there, we were near Fairbanks, it cost 75 cents just to buy a cucumber. And so we were broke when I got
A lot
there.
of nutrition there.
Well, I just remember the price of a cucumber. That's why I used that. Anyway, we were working cheap. So Jerry had a job working on a dredge, and one of his buddies had a job somewhere. My dad was working on a dredge with Jerry, and I was working. They put me to work cleaning the ditch where the water came down out of the mountains to feed the hydraulic guns, you know. And I'm up there all alone one day just cleaning ditch, and I looked up, and there's a big old moose right in front of me, standing in the same ditch. And they're just...
A bull moose?
Yeah, horns and all, and there's a tree here and a tree over here, but in between there's nothing.
Oh, no.
And he's looking at me, and because I'd had my head down, I was working, and I kind of rounded a little corner, and here's this moose. And I don't think he planned on giving way, because he didn't act like it. So I slowly backed away and got out of the ditch and went way around him.
Yeah.
So you were telling me one time about a story about, was it propane or kerosene catching fire in the house?
You mean like I got burned that time?
I think so.
It wasn't propane. It was my stupidity. I came down and was going to build a fire and had one of those old Ashley heaters. Of course, oh no, you're thinking about the lantern that blew up.
Yes.
Yeah, that was bad. That was really bad. That was where the deer was bellowing so loud and everything. And some of the people that lived there were all working at a little sawmill there, and they were camped around there and stuff. And it was a gasoline Coleman lantern. You have to pump it up, you know. Put gas in and pump it up. And I said, my mom and dad had this little house. It had one bedroom, and it had kind of a kitchen and dining area together, and that's all there was there. And so I took some slabs from the sawmill, and I built myself a little cabin out away from the house where I would go out there and sleep. And my own little domain, you know. Mm-hmm. No mattress, no nothing, just hard boards made out of slabs. Kids can live on just about anything, you know. And I was, how old was I? it wasn't too long before Mom and I got married.
13, 14, something like that.
Yeah, I think it was more like 16, 17, because we had those trucks I was talking about that we put together from the Army, and I was driving the trucks and hauling rock and hauling coal and hauling whatever. Anyway, and while we were there at the sawmill, we were using them to log logs with. We would load the logs, skid them and load them with horse, and then take them to this little, what I'd call a one-horse sawmill. It was a little mill where when you get to work in the morning, you drive your pickup over there and you jack up one wheel and you put the belt over the tire and fire up the truck, and that's your power for the sawmill. And it worked good. Anyway, I was pumping up the lantern one night to go out to my little cabin out there, room that I had built. And I'm not real sure. I'm pretty sure, but I don't want to admit it. What happened? I overfilled the gas tank. I overpumped the pressure. And I'd done it 1,000,000 times before, maybe not 1,000,000, but a lot. And I'd seen everybody used to do it. You get it overpressurized, you just crack the cap just a little bit, you know. And so I'm sitting at the table. It's a round table. My baby sister is sitting at my left shoulder. And Mom and Dad are over here somewhere, and Jerry's somewhere around there. And I did that to the cap. I twisted just a hair, you know. And that pump blew out, right out of that thing. And the gas came out. It went everywhere, it was spewing right out. And just the inner side of the pump, it didn't completely come out. Anyway, it hit me in the face, and I didn't have a shirt on. It was summertime, and it burned me really, really bad. Anyway, I'm on fire. My baby sister's sitting to my left, and I grabbed the lantern and whirled it back around the other way to get away from her because it's shooting fire everywhere. And I whirled around, and it's a little house, and the door to the outside was open, and I ran for that door to throw this lantern away, which I did. I was fast, and I got that all taken care of, but I'm really on fire bad. And Dad hollers to Jerry, he says, "Head him off," he says. He thought I was running because it's on fire. And he said, "Head him off, Jerry, head him off." Well, before they caught me, I whirled around and went back. There was a bedroom on this little place, and there was a blanket hanging in the door of the bedroom because it didn't have a door. That was the door to separate it from the rest of the house. And I knew instinctively, I guess, but my mind, get to that blanket and wrap it around and put out the fire, which I did, but Jerry caught up with me, him or Dad won, and I got it around my head, but my shoulders were still on fire and stuck down here. And they grabbed the blanket and slapped that out. Well, it took all the hide and everything when they blew off my shoulders. And that was at a place called Belmont, was an ammunition dump where during the war, they put big bunkers loaded with ammunition for the war, you know. Anyway, Belmont was active at the time, and Parks, that was the name of that little town, which it died, but now they say it's coming back to life. Anyway, we got in the old truck, and Mom and Dad took me down to the emergency at Belmont, the military emergency thing there, because we lived way out about, I think it was about 20 miles out of Flagstaff. And this guy in there, this first aid guy, he was an idiot. He was trying to do something, but he had this old white cold salve, you know, to put on the wounds. And my skin is hanging down under my chin and down here, you know. It's just, it's horrible. My biggest concern was my looks. I'm going to be ruined forever. I'm serious.
Yeah, well, it's a valid concern.
I wrote a story about that, and you read it someday. It's in my list of stories. And anyway, this guy, he had the big flat tongue pressers, you know, and he'd scoop the stuff out of the bottle and then he'd try to spread it on me. And my mom said to him, says, well, why don't you put that on the gauze? He had the patches. He'd spread that on me and then put the gauze on. She says, wouldn't it be better? Because it hurt like crazy.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it work better if you put the medication on the patches and then put them on, you know, just lay them on. But
Yeah.
he got mad or mouthed off. And I was in terrible shape, but I thought I was tough too. So I smarted off at him and told him I'd deck him.
Good for you. Good for you, Grandpa.
Because he treated her bad, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
That was a smart suggestion.
so he just wrapped me up, said that's the best he could do. So we went into town from there. Mom took me into Flagstaff. She knew a lady that was a nurse in there at one of the doctor's offices. Mm-hmm. And it was late in the evening, but the lady got up or was home, I don't remember which, and she met us down at the doctor's office. And she took her scissors and cut the bandages loose because he just wrapped me tight. My left ear was turned almost inside out from the swelling and the blistering and everything. In fact, I've had worse hearing in my left ear over that, and my left eye has never been as good. But anyway, she cut it loose, and then she put some more stuff around to make it more bearable, you know. Because all I have at this point, I just have a little hole to suck juice through, and my 2 little peek holes to see through, and the rest of it's all bandaged. Anyway, we went home, made it through the night, went back in when the doctor was there the next day, and it's the only time in my life, there was 2 times in my life I passed out. That was one of them. And the other one was far less heroic. That was when, I don't know if your mom has ever told you about the time that her and Evie were sleeping behind the house in the little room we had out there. Some guy was trying to get in their room at night.
Right.
Oh.
Anyway, I'll tell you that
I've
later.
heard that story.
I'll tell you that later. But anyway, the doctor says, I was sitting there and he started taking that bandage off and he says, here, let's lay him down. That's all I remembered. And until they were raising me back up, they had me all bandaged up. And so I did pass out.
Yeah.
So,
Burns are awful. They just hurt everywhere.
Oh,
and it's just
they're
like
bad.
there's no escape, you know, it just never stops. It
was tough.
Skin is a big organ,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, it was a tough one, and I remember I prayed about that. I was so disappointed because I was a handsome kid. And I just knew my looks were ruined for life. I never prayed so hard for anything in my life.
It's not vanity if it's true. It's not arrogance if it's true.
I don't know about that, but it's true. It was true.
I was going to say, you didn't have any
And those prayers
scarring.
they were answered. For years I carried a couple of scars on I don't think you can see them in Oregon, but on
Because
these,
you're white?
yeah, on these cords here I used to have
Yeah.
a scar about the size of my finger running about that
But
far
that's
up.
pretty good for...
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't have been the best looking boy in town when I met Mom. Anyway, that was a hard night. That was a hard one to get over because that was a lot of bad burns.
But you saved
And that
your
must be the
sister.
fire you're thinking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was another time when the coals had died down in the stove and I was going to fire it up in the morning. And I took a little bit of gasoline in because the fire was out. It had been all night. And I poured a little bit of gas. I would pour it in there and then I would throw some wood in there and throw a match in there. Well, this morning I went to do that. And
Still had fire.
there was a live coal in there somewhere. And I jerked back the can I had the gas in and threw it in my face.
Oh.
That wasn't too bright either. But
Yeah, I burned my face good once. Mom and Dad said, hey, we want all these blackberries chopped down before we get home. And for some reason I thought, well, if I spray them all in gasoline and then burn them, then it'll just be faster. I don't have to do all this work. So I sprayed them all down with gasoline, having no idea how much gasoline you should use or not use, and I tossed a match on it, and it was like a mini explosion, and I flew backwards, and just there was
pyrotechnics,
dude. My eyebrows, my hair, my eyelashes, everything. You smell that burnt hair, and it was just burnt, and
lucky you didn't light the whole property on fire.
Yeah, blackberries didn't even hardly burn, dude. It was just me.
No, they won't. They're green. But I know that. I burned my eyelashes and my
Bryce
eyebrows off.
I did that we were at a Boy Scout, Snake River. We were on the Snake River, Boy Scouts. I don't even know where the leaders were. They were probably asleep in their tent. And we got the bright idea. We got the kerosene. We put it in the cup. And we're like, we dump it in the fire and it'd go whoosh. We're all, hey, that'd be cool. One of you guys get the kerosene, someone dump it, and we'll jump through.
Idiots. How old were
So,
you? 12?
I don't know, boys 12, 13. So they dumped it. I jumped through, and then I think there was another one of my friends jumped through after me.
Is that Clint?
No, it was Mitch. Singed all the hair on her head. Every hair we had was singed. I just remember Mitch got busted. His mom and dad knew right away when he got home that he had done it. They noticed.
Because he had curled hair?
But I never got, I don't know, my dad never said anything. Maybe he knew. I don't think my mom knew that I mean.
That's the way life is. You do something stupid, and by morning, everybody in town knows what you did.
Yeah.
And you ain't told nobody.
Yeah. But yeah, that was not the brightest things to do.
Katie and I, we had our mom, your daughter, she beat us good a number of times, and she also
didn't even ruin you either.
No, it didn't. And that's one thing I was gonna say is like, first of all, did she get that from you or from Grandma?
She didn't get it from Grandma. She probably got it from Grandma making me do it. But
that's probably
no. Actually, in my day and my parents' day, corporal punishment was how you made kids grow up to be good people.
Yeah.
And now they don't do that, and very few of them are turning out to be really good people. So,
yeah.
I don't know if there's a correlation there or not. But
possibility.
I feel like a good beating was in order a number of times with me, and I never resented my parents for a beating that I deserved. I don't know.
You know how I looked at that, Brian? I got a few, not very many, that I did not deserve. Mm-hmm. But I thought, the ones I've gotten away with more than make up for one. They didn't catch me on this other one. That's the way it used to be about poaching deer, Well, if I get caught, the fine was not easy, but you're still way ahead of the game. But they changed those rules.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I just wondered because, it's a different time today. And even when Katie and I were kids and Bryce, and the way our parents raised us, and you see, society in general's changed quite a bit.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of things, some things are better and some things aren't. But the way kids are today, seems like, there's, like from your childhood growing up, it was kind of the strong survive. There was a lot of hard work involved, no free meals.
Yeah, a lot of hard work. I used to get up at 4 o'clock, go run a garbage rock because we had a hog ranch. Mm-hmm. Come home, feed the hogs every day before school. And that was a pretty big job, and we'd go like crazy. Jerry and I just go like crazy. We'd milk our 6 cows that we had, separate the cream, feed the hogs, run the garbage route, feed the hogs, get dressed, go to school as quick as we could, and on the way to school we had to take the cream that we separated from the milking, drop it off at the dairy, and it would just go, 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 and then when you get to school and you get slowed down, and Oh, wow, I've got garbage on my foot, slop on my shoe, Then I'd be embarrassed about that. Life was not easy. And then when school was out, we had to work. If you live on a ranch or any place where you're trying to make a living on a piece of property, you got work to do. And plenty of it. But we had fun, too. We had horses. We got to rope and ride and do that stuff.
Because you guys didn't have video games, did you?
Oh, no, thank goodness.
Thank goodness.
Yeah.
We don't have those either at our house.
We don't have them at ours either.
They have ruined more people than anything ever. More kids. Look at, I don't want to name any names out loud that might be viewed later, but I have a family that I home teacher, great parents, good people, and I love them, and they love me, and their kids are useless. Because video games have ruined them.
Yeah.
One of them can't get married, doesn't have kids. The other got married and he screwed it all up.
Well, even TV, so I was just saying the other day on a podcast, we were having a discussion. I was talking about technology, and I was telling a story about the first time I walked into one of the Apple stores, and I got on a mobile phone that could actually connect to the internet, and I watched a YouTube video, and it blew my mind. For you, it was like television for the first time.
Yeah. Well, the first television Mom and I had, you'd just sit there and watch a snowstorm. That's all you could get. It was black and white. And that's all you could get. And that's all it was for a long time. And they just didn't work in the beginning.
We called it an ant fight.
Yeah,
an ant fight.
Yeah.
Because our TV, we didn't have
one either for a long time.
TV, well, yeah.
We could watch Magnum PI in black and white. Yeah. Do you remember that?
I do. I remember watching, wasn't Magnum PI, it was...
Little House on the Prairie.
Well, that too, but...
There's only a few shows to choose from.
Yeah, the guy that we got ours from, I tried to adjust it a little bit, get it.
Uh-huh.
And he told Mom...
Perry Mason.
Tell your husband that stay away from this or I'm not coming back when he came in. But he didn't make it that much better, so big deal. You still couldn't watch it. And
so what'd you guys do if you didn't have TV and video games?
We rode...
Shot the street lights out.
We rode horses and we
coached deer.
we roped calves and we tried to ride the steers, but I kind of by that like I was fighting. I didn't like it. It was too scary,
Yeah.
Too scary, but I'll fall out of an airplane.
Well, I'm in control.
Oh yeah.
There. And that's later. Yeah, we had a lot to do. We did school a lot, and we took Dad's racehorse out and rode her till she had saddle sores, but we outran every horse that any kid could come up with. And, we did a lot of things. We got in a lot of trouble.
How handy were people with horses back then? How handy were people with horses?
Oh, they're handy. They had them. They were horsemen,
Yeah.
Yeah, I used to have... they called him, what was that horse's name? I forgot my own horse's name. Anyway, he was a bulldog horse. And when he started after a cow, he didn't change. He'd go right up to the place where you're supposed to bail off. I was chasing a milk cow one time to get her out and take her home. And she'd run along the fence, and the fence goes down here like this, and it keeps going, but there's another fence that goes this way. And there's a gate right here where she's supposed to turn and get out. And I've still got a scar across this leg. Goes all the way across where we ran through that next fence and the barbed wire just drug over. That horse, Bud, I think, they call him Bud. And every time, what I started to say is every time we get on him, he was a great horse for this. He would buck and bellow and really put on a show. And I swear, it was like sitting in a rocking chair. He wasn't, there was no snap, just all show, but he really made it look good. If you didn't know,
Yeah.
Yeah. You could
he was
impress the
somehow.
ladies.
Yeah, I watched Dad ride a few horses where we were kids, and I was like, that horse laid down
and rolled
yeah. and he stayed on the
I
horse
was
and
terrified.
gets back up and goes back down.
Yes,
and it was
just
like
beating the.
Because you talk about your dad having a temper. My dad has one too. It's pretty.
He's the sweetest. He's Jekyll and Hyde.
He's the nicest guy until
he's not.
Till he loses his temper. And I'm not like that at all.
No.
Katie's not like that. For the most part, I mean, we're pretty. No.
Yeah, I've seen my dad.
There's a little warning.
Seen my dad get mad at a horse and grab him by the ear and twist his ear and put it in his mouth and bite on. The horses don't like that. They're tender in the ears.
Right.
And he'd just make that horse just biting on his ear. He'd just make him practically kneel down and lay down. And he'd whack him with a club or something a couple times and the horse would behave. But horses do have enough sense to get past their tantrums,
Yeah. Yeah, I think especially...
He was a real cowboy. He learned all that from that guy in that book there that you were looking at.
Yeah, I want to read that book.
Who is it?
I read it earlier. I read a lot of the chapters here. The Life and Times of William Green Ware, or Weir, W-E-A-R.
Yeah.
He's related to us.
Yeah,
Cool.
He's related to you. He is my grandmother's father. So he'd be my great-grandfather, I guess.
Anyway, the number, there's some pretty... there's a thing about...
You wait, young man. I'll teach you to throw rotten eggs at a person.
Why am I not surprised that he's related?
I know.
Or this next line. I was tickled all over, but said, Grandma, are you going to whip me? She said, yes. And then my uncle said, if you don't, I will. I said, no, you won't if my rotten eggs get pulled out. So, yeah. He's a cowboy.
Yeah, he roped a bear. I told you about that.
He roped a bear?
Yeah, he roped a bear, and the bear charged the horse, I think is the way it went, after he roped him. Because, what would he do?
Right.
And
You'd hope it's a pretty long rope.
yeah, well, he could outmaneuver the bear on the horse, and he'd run fast like that, and the bear would charge, and he would double back and hit the end of the rope, and he just fought the bear on the end of the rope until he wore him out. Mm-hmm. The bear got tired, and eventually...
You don't want to fall off the horse,
no kidding.
And you don't want the horse to slip.
But eventually,
as long
the
as
bear
the rope
got really
stays on.
tired.
Yeah.
So he drugged the bear for a while. I don't know how big the bear was, probably not very big. And finally, when he got him totally worn out, he got out, cut his throat with a pocket knife. Did you ever see a bear hanging when it was skinned?
Yes.
Never again did I want to eat bear after that. I swear to you, it looks like a human being.
It does.
Hanging up by his heels. It's been skinned.
Yeah, I've said that a few times. A lot of guys have said the same thing. As soon as they see one, it's kind of, it never bothered me. But I have, a lot of people have made that correlation.
I don't know. It just affected me to see it. That was a neighbor to my brother had a bear hanging in his garage. When we went down to get him, we were going to go deer hunting early one morning. So Tommy Whitmore and my brother Jack. Did I ever tell you this?
No, but the name Wetmore just took her away again.
We were going to go.
It sounds fake.
We were going to go
like it's
early.
a nickname you came up with.
So we went to bed, going to get up early and go hunting. Well, here's Tommy after a while beating on my door. We were going to go at 4 o'clock,
Uh-huh.
And time to go, and I'm upset a little because my alarm hadn't gone off. So I didn't check the alarm or nothing. I just got up and jumped in my clothes because we were late. We ran down to Jackson. He wasn't up. He was going to go with us. He said, what are you guys doing? I said, you're crazy. Because we're trying to get him going. He says, it's not even midnight. And Tommy had woke up, thought it was time to go, came and got me up. And
want to kill
I
him.
just went along. I didn't check.
I'm asleep, Alpha. That
Got
would
down there and Jack wouldn't go. He just said, no. He said, look at your watch. Anyway, it was his neighbor that had the bear hanging in the garage when we're, I don't know if it was that time or another time, but I didn't like it, looking at it that way.
Yeah.
I used to eat some bear, but they were big old tough bear.
I
They used to have this honey cure ham thing, you know.
Mm-hmm.
You get a solution, put it in a big syringe, and you treat the meat. And so I just treated the hams and all the meat I could with that. And then what I finally
Was
wound
that so
up...
you didn't get trichinosis?
No, that's just to give it flavor.
Oh.
Anyway, we fed it to Julie and Martha and everybody in sandwiches. We cured it and ground it up.
Yeah.
And then
Like pulled pork.
Yeah. And it was pretty good that way, but he was too tough otherwise.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had some of Brian's bear.
Tastes like beef.
It was.
Tastes a lot like beef.
It was.
The steaks were good.
Yeah.
Some of the other stuff with the fat in it was
Yeah.
a little.
Yeah, you really, that POW bear, you need to
that
pull the
roast.
fat off. It tastes
Yeah.
like old fish.
Yeah, it was weird, but
Brent had bear the best, though.
Brent decided to eat rare bear steaks, which gave him trichinosis.
It didn't turn out good, did it?
it's tricky.
Yeah.
Does that surprise you that my brother did that?
I don't. Nothing surprised me too much. Remember when we had the high deck out here?
Yes.
I went out there one day and he was up on, what was he, about 5 or 4?
Uh-huh.
He's up on the
On
bench.
the bench. He's about to.
He's got a bungee cord.
No,
like-
an
extension cord.
electric extension cord.
Well, but I think he had a bungee cord involved there too.
It's possible.
And what are you doing? You're going to bungee jump.
Yeah.
Because he'd seen pictures of me
Yeah.
bungee jumping with all my buddies.
He
And
was gonna,
Well, he had it tied around his waist, but there was not tied to anything else.
I don't know if he had
it's like
it
a
tied.
30-foot drop.
You know, that carport got me one day. I guess we were living here. Or I was going to come in the back door. I had that Chevy Lumina, and I ran in there, and I pulled up and stopped, and I was in a hurry, and I jumped out to go in the house. And that's when Mom and I were living over there. And you know how the big posts that held the deck up were right there. I came just past it where I could get to this back door. And I missed the park or something.
So it didn't quite go in.
Anyway, as soon as I jumped out, the car starts rolling backwards and the door's open.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
And the door knocked me down and drug across my back and my head and everything. And didn't run over me, but it drug all over me and then it ran down under the carport and ran into that tree back there.
Yeah.
And,
It's a little Tommy Boy action.
Yeah.
The door ripped off.
Oh, yeah, I forgot to mention that. I forgot to
hit the
mention
post.
that.
I remember
As
that.
I went past the post, it took the door off the car.
I think that post took a few doors.
That was a bad day.
So there was that time when you had the tractor fall on you.
That was
yeah.
not a fun day, guys.
Yeah.
I still have a newspaper
Was that about the same time that I
Picture.
was run over?
back in that age, that day and age.
Because I remember
That tractor,
we were both in the
it
hospital. at the
wasn't a
same
big
time.
tractor. It was an HD7 Alice Chalmers, you know.
I mean, it was.
It wasn't a big tractor.
When you mean tractor, you're talking the bulldozer, right?
Yeah.
Not
Yeah. It was, I think those weigh about 15 tons is what they weigh. They're not a big cat
It's not
tractor.
big.
not a D12 or 13,
No.
just like a D7 or
But
8.
I gotta tell you, when one's laying on top of you, they're plenty big. I could only move this hand. Everything else was just squeezed, pinned tight.
Oh,
My shoulders up in the seat, the armrest is across my neck, and I can just barely talk. And I have to fight for every ounce of air that I could get, and I could move this finger. And you try to tell Lloyd how to operate a handyman jack. with one hand and limited air to talk.
I don't think the handyman jack is rated at 15 tons.
Well, I tell you what, it saved my life. He kept going down, and you know how they
Let's
don't
start
catch?
over from the beginning, though.
Yes.
How did this happen?
Well, pulled along out here by Redland Road, just past the entrance out there.
By Unity Lane.
And yeah, because we're going to unload this tractor, so.
Because you guys were building the road.
Yeah.
For our property.
I pulled up there, and it's kind of soft on the shoulder, so the trailer wheel's kind of sunk and like this. So we're sitting there like this and can't really pull out, I'm stuck. Well, it's only this far off the edge of the trailer in that position to the ground.
About a foot?
Yeah. I mean, we're right there. So I thought, well, I'll just unload the tractor here, the bulldozer here. And so I got out, got up there, fired it up, turned it sideways on the trailer, and backed off. This thing didn't have a canopy. And here's what happened. It was just in the ground, just leveled out the ground, right there, just off and go is all it's going to be. But what had actually happened, that was an optical illusion because the blackberries had grown up, and somewhere in the process, the grass had grown up before the blackberries did, and the grass was tall grass, and it got up, 5 or 6 feet high, and then it just folded over. So it looked like I had flat ground. I thought that folder was laying on the ground, but it wasn't. It was another 5 feet down there. So I backed off, and there was nothing there to catch the cat. It just continued and went over backwards.
So the caterpillar flipped over backwards.
Yeah, straight over backwards. And I tried to kick loose and jump bail out. I got crossways in the seat, and I got out as far as enough to get my neck caught on the armrest of the seat that I was sitting in, and the cat's upside down, and the armrest is across here, and I can't get any air because...
It's on your left side of your neck?
Well, yeah, I was laying on my right side, and I can't get any air. I just have to struggle. So, and Mom had to be there and watch all of that, which wasn't easy for her. And they got the handyman jack, but then... You know how the dogs and those things don't always click in? And Lloyd would go up, he'd push it down, and it would raise it up, and I'd try to get a little air, and he'd let it down because it wasn't catching. So I finally trying to tell him, Lloyd, take the end of your crowbar, your handle that you're using there, take that and hit that pin. When you go down, hit that pin in, and it'll catch. He couldn't figure it out. Of course, he was all excited, scared.
And stress.
So we go up and down. It wasn't working. They finally got the message to make the jack work. It hadn't been oiled for a long time. Anyway, I was under that cat for an hour and 45 minutes. It was a long hour and 45 minutes.
Struggling for every breath.
Oh, yeah. And then when Bud's Towing came out there, and the old guy that was in charge, I guess the old man of the thing back then, he was half drunk. And he kept trying to tell them they were hooked onto it from the highway. He kept trying to tell them, "Go drag it out of there, drag it." And they kept trying to tell him, "No, we'll just drag it over and kill him. He's not dead yet."
Yeah.
And anyway, they fought him off. And then the ambulance got there. And the girl came down with the oxygen, which was really a lifesaver, except she got down there and looked at me, and she said, "I'm not going to waste the oxygen. He's done." And she headed back up to the road with it, And that fireman that was there trying to dig me out and help me, there were a bunch of them there, but he said, "What did she say?" And the other fireman repeated, and he says, "Well, that blankety blanket blank, spelled B-I-T-A-C. Yeah. Anyway, he went and got it.
Good for him.
He said he went up there and gave her peace of mind, and he brought back the oxygen, and then life got a little easier because I could just square my shoulders like that. While I'm holding what compression I could get out of the seat cushion, which wasn't much, I could get a little tiny bit of air.
So you never passed out.
I never passed out. But I learned a lesson from that I remember the rest of my life. No matter how bad situation gets, fight it and stick with it, and eventually, 10 years or whatever later, it'll be okay. But you can live through hard, tough things. And I don't remember where I learned that lesson. I think that's what got me through that, because I had learned that lesson somewhere.
I mean, an hour and 45 minutes is a long time to be pinched under there and not being able to breathe. And so what was going through your mind?
Well, just hoping that the thing didn't slide down the hill.
Oh, yeah.
See, when it went over, the dozer was up.
Still kind of on a slope.
So when it went over, the dozer caught, it's upside down, the dozer caught some of the weight. And now if the hose breaks or something, it loses oil. You know, that's it.
Oh.
And so one of the...
Now, did they take a picture of you?
Yeah, I have a...
Under it?
Yeah. They couldn't see me.
So then they dug you out? That's how they finally got you out?
The firemen got down there. It was pretty easy digging, I guess. I don't know. They had shovels and stuff. He kept digging. He dug right under that cat. He was under there working, passing the dirt out, and they were dragging it out. He was laying under there with me, under the track, you know. And if the cat had ever slid, he'd have been a goner.
Yeah.
And he finally got enough dug out to where they could drag me off into the thing and then drag me out by the legs, which were broken.
Oh.
And, that hurt too. But anyway, I have a picture of it.
So you had 2 broken legs?
No, one broken leg.
One broken leg.
But it was the leg that had artificial joint in it, so that was a big worry. I remember the doctor didn't want to operate on it, afraid of infection or something. I remember at the hospital, he put his knee against it, straightened it out to put a cast on.
Ouch.
They took me down to Oregon City, and they couldn't do it. They didn't have enough facilities. So they gave me a shot of morphine and took me over to Portland. Anyway, that was I don't know. There's a lot more to that story. Brother Creek and Brother Ruger were out there. They're both in the picture packing me out. That's in the newspaper. By then, half the town was out there, you know.
Yeah.
And probably everybody wonder what's wrong with that idiot that he tried to. But I swear to you, it was perfect if the ground had been where it appeared to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And didn't walk out or see because blackberries had grown up.
Yeah.
And they were growing straight up.
Oh, yeah. Back then, I mean, if you go up another 20 yards, it is flat right there. There is no missing ground. You know?
Yeah.
I remember
there's a whole article
visiting
on
you
that.
at the hospital. I was in the hospital when you had your cast on.
Yeah.
I
can't remember. I don't. Of course, you know, I was in the hospital for days and days. They would come in there, and the doctor would come in and he would throw the covers back, and then he would look inside my legs right here, and then he would look under here. And he'd put the blanket back over me and leave. And I didn't know what he was doing until later on they told me. I was in some kind of a shock.
Mm-hmm.
Not toxic, shock anyway. And he said people usually die from it. And they were just waiting to see if it ever breaks.
Right.
Then you're okay. But until you break out in red splotches in those tender skin areas, you're in danger. And that's when my dad died down in Arizona. While I was in there, and they didn't even tell me he died. I didn't get to go to that funeral because they were thinking I was in too bad a shape for anymore. Anyway, I didn't know that he had died until quite a while later. Mm-hmm. So, and you know, that's a void.
Yeah.
I right to this day, I put the pieces together and stuff, and Mom and I got on our motorcycle just previous to that, a month or two, and went down to visit him because I had this feeling, premonition, I got to go see my dad. You know, he's getting he's getting there, you know, and I should go see him. Maybe I just wanted to take a long motorcycle ride. I don't know. But anyway, that's what I felt. And we went down to visit with him, came home, had that accident, and he died. So I was glad we went.
Yeah.
And I guess I almost did, according to the doctors.
Yeah.
I don't recall, you know, they say I was delirious with that fever and stuff and out of my head and crap, you know. That's what the doctor said, but I don't remember any of that. Mm-hmm. I just don't.
So far, you've been almost burned to death, broken legs, smashed under a tractor.
Oh, there's a long list.
Yeah, well, I blame your mom for the last one. When I had that from the hip operation, everything's up inside, you know, because the hip's all gone and it's through the pelvis. And they got up and there was all that stuff they put in there. What happened was there's scar tissue and stuff, and the scar tissue caused the intestine to snag and fold it over. So now the intestine is blocked, and that was just, 3 years ago or something. Yeah. And I'm in the hospital they said I was in there for 2 days before they got him to do something. And your mom finally threw a fit and made him do it. And I don't remember those 2 days. I was beyond having to die. I was, I had made it. and she went to bat. And she said the hospital people were real polite and stuff, and they were okay. They didn't. But if she hadn't made them, she told me, you guys got to do something. Because the doctor, they couldn't find the doctor that was going to do the surgery. Well, 2 days later. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she was pretty mad.
Yeah, she was. His brother finally came in and did the job. Mm. And I have a hernia right there where they did it now, but it won't bother me for the rest of my life. So. Well,
you don't need your looks anymore.
Well, no, it's not that bad, and I'm going to say I'm just glad to be alive. I'm glad that I lived through it and lived this long, although I'd like to be home already, gone, you know, but some things have happened since since Mom died that make it worthwhile to have stayed around. I'm a better person than I used to be.
How did Grandma handle you being under a tractor? And
That's what I was going
not hysterically. She pulls it together when the chips are down. When Blake died, and every time there's a real critical situation, she's the one that does what has to be done. Just like when Helen drowned. Yep. When Joe was hung, she pumped them both back to life, and in Joe's case, she had no choice. We're out on the ranch. There was no telephone, no car when she was there that day alone. Nothing. She had to either get him breathing again or let him die.
She always had that calm, you know.
No, she comes through in the tight spots better than anybody I think I've ever known.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Not like my dad.
You guys don't be laughing to his face.
My mom does pretty good in that, you know. But if you need someone to lift a car off the ground in an emergency, my dad can do it.
Yeah.
The adrenaline.
Somebody else's emergency.
Right. He superhuman strength, but there's not a lot of logic in place. So
well,
and everybody has a different purpose, right? Like
Lloyd is not no hero either. When I cut my leg with a chainsaw down there on that Grand Canyon job,
I remember that.
We went to the hospital in Kanab to get it sewed up, and it cut the shin bone all the way through, except just that much. You could see the X-ray. The chainsaw tooth just went across and took a canyon out.
Ouch.
And anyway, we were down there in the hospital.
Dude, that would suck. I'm just saying, like,
To saw through a bone, it's just not.
Well, it grew back, I guess. But we were in there. Lloyd went in with me. There were several of us there, a crew of about 4 guys, or 5.
Yeah.
And anyway, went back into the room where the doctor put me on a table. He was cleaning it out. And Lloyd was there. Of course, it was gapped open pretty big. When you cut a leg like that.
Just splays open.
It's a cut, but then it all sags. And it kind of a...
Addie's foot.
Yeah.
A little
sliced
canyon.
it.
Mm-hmm. And Lloyd tried to pass out. While the doctor was cleaning it, he took some gauze and he was just mopping it out, Because on the way out of the woods, I was playing tough, and a big buck jumped up, and I had my legs all half off, but we wanted meat. So I jumped out, tried to kill that buck, but I missed him. I guess I was shaky. I don't know.
Maybe the blood loss.
Boy, he was a beautiful buck, though.
About severed your shin bone, so
Yeah.
sometimes your little
You miss.
Sometimes it's not time to go hunting.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. But,
So Uncle Lloyd almost passed out.
yeah. I think I don't know.
Did my dad pass out too? Oh, he passed out when he cut his own leg with
Yeah,
his chainsaw.
Yeah, actually, the story goes Lloyd had to leave where the doctor was at, and he went back out where, who else was there? Bill was there. We were all in that job together. I think Bill was there then. I know he was there for part of the job, and somebody else. And they said Lloyd came out. He was passing out. He said he couldn't stand there. He was going to pass out.
I can't say. I mean, I've only fainted one time, and I think I was like 12. And I don't know what happened, but we had seen The Lone Ranger, and Ben and I decided we were going to be blood brothers. So we needed to cut our hand open and then slap them together. So I'm older than Ben, so I got to be the brave one. And I don't remember, there's like 10 cousins around, okay, do it. So I cut myself with a razor blade through the hand, which started bleeding. Now, it wasn't like a big cut, but, you're 12. I cut my hand. I'm sitting there bleeding, right, and I'm waiting for Ben to cut his hand. Well, Ben lost the nerve to cut his hand. So we're sitting here arguing about whether he should cut his hand or not. And someone's grabbing someone's grabbing like a needle to poke it, I'm like, that's not the same thing. And somewhere in that time frame, I'm sitting there with the hand bleeding. I'm looking at it, and I guess I just forgot to breathe. And I just hit the ground.
You know what? That reminds me of a story.
Yeah.
I had a friend named Mickey Marks, and he was getting drafted.
Mickey Marks. These are made up. It's got to be made up.
No, it's not. He was going to get drafted. He didn't want to go to the service. But we were stupid, and we thought, Mom and I were young. That was before Martha was born, and between her and Julie. We lived in Farmington, New Mexico, and so we had heard that if you didn't have a trigger finger, they wouldn't draft you in the Army. You had to have a trigger finger.
Mm-hmm.
So we decided we'd shoot Mickey's finger off, and he wouldn't have to go. So we're down there in Phoenix one day. We went down for something from
oh man, this is just a bad idea.
Anyway, he had a pistol. I think it was a .32, a little short one, and he's going to hold his finger out there, and I'm going to shoot it off. Well, I got too close, so of course the concussion from the muzzle blew his finger out of the way, but it tore it all up, and the bone was sticking out. But it didn't shoot it off. And I'm trying to tell him, hold it out there again, Mickey. Shoot it one more time, it'll come off. He didn't have the nerve.
How old were you guys?
Old enough to get drafted.
Old enough to get drafted.
Older than 18.
So did he go?
No. Well, yeah, he finally wound up going to the Army. He went to... I went down the road and took him to a doctor's office, and they sewed it up. Wrapped the meat back around and put stitches in it.
Oh, that's going like 90% there and then back again. Like
they asked, how did this happen?
I don't know. I don't remember that part. He probably said the gun went off accidentally.
Okay, young enough to get drafted, but too dumb not to do this.
Well, I know what that's like. I shucked all of the scar right here. I shucked all of the meat off of that so when the bone was sticking out. So I know what he felt like.
Ouch.
So it wasn't that bad. I was helping him set the mast on a fishing boat next to my boat. I had this tuna boat at the time. Mm-hmm. And it was over in San Luis Obispo. And so I'm sitting on the hold where they throw the fish in, and this big square lid is loose and it's cocked up. And I'm sitting on it, put my feet against the bottom of the mast to help push it up in the air while a couple of guys are lifting it up. That's the big tall pole that goes up with all of the lines and the girders and things run off of. Well, this lid, I had hold of it, and it slid back and went shut with my finger in there. Took the...
Well, I know what that... my brother, we were playing in our grandparents' shower. They told us not to do it, and it's that old where the door...
Sliding
well,
door?
he slammed my finger in the door. And I went up, and it was hanging down, and they're like, okay, we better take it down to the doctor.
Which you never went to.
No, we went there. But, yeah, they sewed it on. There's a scar around the whole thing, but it was just dangling.
If you do, like...
Well, I thought he'd just take that digit off, because it's all sticking out there in the bone. But he put it back on and sewed it on. It had a little...
That digit.
Had a little piece about 1/8 of an inch holding, and the finger and the bone were just separated.
It's weird, like, we're doing construction, I got my fingers with the saw a few times and hammered and chopped them all up, and I've cut myself a lot and almost cut the tip of my pointer finger off. But it only takes a little piece of skin
to feed it, I guess.
Feed it, and it like comes back to life, man.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I was really surprised when he saved mine.
Yeah, there was like 4 years where I could not feel. I had no feeling at the end of the finger.
Yeah, it's mom's thumb.
But it's back now.
This leg that I cut with a chainsaw, for years and years, right there's a rough spot. That's the end of the nerve that it cut off right there. It cut the nerve when it cut the leg. And you know how you have that nerve that connects down here?
Your ankle?
I would toggle that swelled spot at the end of the nerve, and my ankle would just sting like crazy.
Really?
The nerve was cut off up there, but it thought it was down there.
Yeah.
So your body, but it got all better. Eventually, it takes years. Takes a lot of years.
So, Grandpa, all your kids work pretty hard.
Yeah.
Well, that's what you have kids for.
Yeah, I remember Carrie talking about that once. She got a good beating that day. All you do is have us so you could make us work. That didn't go over well with Dad. Did not go over well.
She should have been born in the old days when they had a lot of kids because they had a lot of work to do on the ranch.
Yeah.
So, how did our parents grow up?
Well, that's a sad story. Mom did her very best to raise them right, and I worked I had a lot of different jobs, but too much of my time when they were in their teens, and early teens, I was gone 24 hours a day on the road, driving truck, and I just working 24 hours, work, Even when we lived in Santa Fe Springs and I had the propane rig, I worked day and night, seemed like.
Yeah.
Came home one night and was dead tired. Had been hours and days working. And I went to bed and I was just dead. And I don't know how many hours later, next day or somewhere maybe 2 days. I woke up and I staggered out to the front door and looked out the door and across the street. Some guy was out there taking stuff out of my truck, my personal belongings, and laying them on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And I said to Mom, I said, what's that dude doing out there? What's going on? She says, I sold your truck. Oh. I said, okay. And I went back to bed. I was just working too long. Kind of like Joe does now when he works 3 or 4 days in a row, you know.
Yeah.
I tried to tell him, don't do that. That bad hip he's got's going to give in one day.
Yeah.
Then he'll have a apparatus all the way through the pelvis and up into the guts like I do. I shouldn't put it that way. You're on camera. Up into the intestines. Yeah, the cage they put in to be able to fix it the last time. It's clear through the pelvis, and I have an X-ray of it.
I was going to say, do you have a?
I've got an X-ray of it before they did it. Yeah,
We've got the one where we tried to.
Get
it was
back in
us.
socket.
We tried to pull the leg back into socket.
Yeah, there's a picture of that over there.
And then we went in and saw
It looks like something out of a cartoon.
Oh yeah.
Like
After seeing the picture, I realized we were never going to pull the leg that far down to get it back into socket.
It was clear out, and the ball was hooked over the edge of the cup.
Yeah, it was out the back side.
I've got to go visit the boys room.
And so,
talking about how strong I'm getting, able to get up out of a chair.
Suzanne got this. You know, it kind of makes me angry though. Like, Suzanne got this steroid cream from the doctor.
Mm-hmm.
And because she had this rash that just kind of came about, which is like how her family is. Just they all have these problems.
That's this one.
And
I think we got it.
so she got this rash, and she was. So they prescribed her this steroid cream, and I got poison ivy when I was in Alabama, and it, just like I normally do, and I'm usually super allergic, and it's horrible. And can you hear okay?
It was squealing. It'll quit, I think.
And
I'll keep slapping it.
So next thing you know, so I put that cream on, and it completely stopped my rash.
Wow.
Like in a day or 2 days, it stopped poison ivy, which normally is so severe, it spreads all over my body. And I was like, are you telling me that doctors have access to this and have had for years and years and years, but they won't prescribe it to me?
Wow.
Because, it's a steroid and all this kind of stuff. I'm like, this stuff is like from heaven. Like, years of pain and misery could be avoided with this thing. And I don't know. I looked up its side effects, and they weren't too bad. So I would rather have that than the rash, man.
It wasn't the normal diarrhea, bleeding, severe death.
I might have had some of that in there, but no, it wasn't. It's related to a steroid. It's a pretty mild steroid, but man, you look at like other options.
Julie used to get poison oak every time we turn around. We lived in Ashland there, up above the deer pen in the park.
Yeah.
Up on that hill. That house burned down now, but she kept coming up with poison oak all the time. And finally, Mom went out one time where they're playing to see if she could spot it, and they had their playhouse up on the hill built right in a patch of it.
Right. I remember hearing that story.
That was kind of...
You expect it to be like pokey or prickly, but it's not.
Poison ivy?
It's shiny and
Yeah, it looks pretty
Flat.
damn harmless, and then
Yeah.
it smacks your ass, and I'm just
Poison
it's the
ivy is
worst.
a vine.
I don't think
but
I've ever had it.
the poison oak is the shiny
Yeah,
leaf. Looks a
poison-
lot like a holly leaf, kind of, only different. But
Shiny like that.
I've had it, but I was never really susceptible to it because fallen timber, you used to go up to the trees and cut the brush away, and sometimes it was poison oak.
Some people
Poison
just
ivy.
a lot. In
most
fact,
days.
there's quite a few people who just don't react to it, but too
Yeah.
badly. And there's
But
people
not
like
you
me.
and Breland.
Yeah, genetic. We
Yeah.
we lost the genetic lottery on that
Yeah,
particular.
yeah, Julie.
But
was
you
real
know,
bad.
me and Breland are handsome though.
Yeah.
Must be related to Grandpa.
Well, I'm handsome, but only because I prayed really, really hard. I'm not kidding you.
I'm like, Father, here's an answer to your prayer.
That was a concern. I mean, think about it. Young man just getting ready to get old enough to pick a wife and ruined for life. I mean,
Yeah.
the skin, I don't know how bad those burns were. I don't remember. They were hanging down. My skin was all hanging off my face down. They had to take gauze and take hold of it.
And your mom was probably...
I think that's just that. Well, at that point, it's the dead skin that's
Yeah.
already kind of gone.
Yeah, it's already
And
gone.
I mean, it was probably lucky you were younger too, because it would regenerate a little better. You're pretty resilient.
Now you had a story about snakes. Was it rattlesnakes?
Me?
When you had to go
Yeah.
pick onions? Is that the same one?
What?
The onion job? Or is this a different snakes?
No, they were kids.
Oh, and Jerry and I were kids, yeah. We had a snake story. We have several of them, but this one was... I'm squealing.
To your earpiece.
Your hearing aid?
Yeah,
hearing
maybe
aid?
my hearing aid. Probably don't need it, do I?
Yeah, probably not. Oh, man.
Yeah, it is the hearing aid.
Yeah. Yeah, we were staying home when Mom was working and Dad was working, and we lived out on Groom Creek. And there
Is
was
this in Arizona?
yeah, there was a shop out there, an old blacksmith shop on the place. There was a lot of snakes around there, and we had a few close calls, but we were watching for snakes all the time because when we were kids, they taught us to be deathly afraid of those rattlesnakes because, kids are home alone more than they are now. And anyway, we were out that old blacksmith shop working and goofing off mostly. There's a big dip going to the house where a draw that runs through there. There was a bridge over it, but I remember, I'm getting sidetracked, but I caught me a squirrel. And I was a little boy, and I just felt betrayed by that squirrel because I had him by the tail, and I was going to the house with him. I'm right in the bottom of this dip. That's why I remember it, right where he just turned around, crawled up his tail, and bit me. He bit clear through my finger with those two teeth they have. in front. I hated him. I should have killed him, but I dropped him. I dropped him and he ran away. Anyway, that same dip was, I don't know, it's about 500 feet or it was a long ways from the blacksmith shop. And we were out there, and pretty soon, I think I went behind the shop to go pee or something, and I saw a snake. So I told Jerry, and he came out there, we started beating around, and we found that snake, and he went back over, he went under a rock, and the rock was about twice the size of that desk, and it had a big flat spot, came down, how a rock would be.
Was it a rattlesnake?
Yeah.
I remember this story.
And he went under there, so what are we going to do? Well, we go to the house and get the gun. Come back, no parents home, but
Oh, geez.
the guns were always loaded in our house when we were kids.
And how old are you exactly?
Healthy respect for the guns.
I don't know, old enough to respect a gun and take care of it.
Yeah.
Anyway, we went, got a gun, came back, and of course you couldn't see a rattlesnake, so Jerry gets down there, sticks it up under there. There's a big flat bottom and kind of an open space going back for a long way.
Jerry's your older brother.
Yeah. And
The wiser one.
it might have been a shotgun, I'm not sure, because we wanted to be sure and get the snake. And shot that gun off, and man, all heck broke loose. The snakes started coming off under there. I'll bet you there were 100 snakes under that rock.
Gosh.
Oh,
I would have died.
Yeah, they do that. They'll den up and stuff.
It was a den of there were snakes after snakes after snakes. And I remember they were just everywhere coming. I remember.
Like Indiana Jones.
Yeah, exactly like that picture in the cave where all the snakes were. And I remember screaming real loud and heading for the house. And I let out one long scream. And by the time I got to the bottom of that draw where the squirrel bit me, it was still coming.
Ooh.
It scared me. But we were taught to be more afraid of snakes than we were of animals or lions. Right. I have a lion story that didn't scare me like those snakes.
Oh, really?
Oh, man, those snakes. But they pounded it into us day and night.
Yeah, right.
Watch for snakes. And there were a lot of them out there at that place.
What's the lion story?
Oh, I said lion story. What was my lion story? Oh, yeah. When we lived up Sun Butte, my dad had to go to work like 5 o'clock in the morning. He was working. He finally got where he could get out and get a job. And so he was working for the highway department, state highway. Mm-hmm. And he had to go early. And Mom got up to get him off to work and didn't have any eggs for his breakfast. So she said, she got Jerry and I up because we had to get up and get working too right away anyway. And we were just little boys then. I don't remember how old I was. I was playing with goats all the time back then. I had a goat, I'll tell you that story. And I made a cart for him. Didn't work out too good. Anyway, she says, you boys run up to Uncle Boyd's house, and that was down across the creek and a trail going up through the rocks and big granite boulders, you know. And up to Uncle Boyd's house. She said, you boys run up to Uncle Boyd's house and get me some eggs for your dad. So we take off up to Uncle Boyd's house, went down past the chicken pens and through the creek and started up the hill. We had a regular trail to get to Uncle Boyd's house because we were neighbors, you know. Mm-hmm. And there was a rock, higher than that cabinet, probably that desk, and way bigger. Up above it was flat, but then that big rock was holding the dirt back and stuff. And then there was another big rock about half that big over here, and it looked like they'd split apart. There was a trail about this wide going between them. So that put the top of that rock about 8-10 feet above our head. And we got up to that rock, and the moon was out. It was still early morning. And here's a big lion, cougar type lion, Arizona lion, mountain lion, up there on that rock. And he's looking down at us. And we saw him, because we were like from here to the wall there when we saw him, so we stopped. Well,
that's like 10 feet.
Well, maybe 20 at that point.
Yeah.
And, well, you know what?
One jump for the lion.
Oh, yeah, I mean, that's just a little,
well, you know what they say. We talked it over real quick. If you run from them, they'll chase you. We better just let him know we're not scared of him and go on to Uncle Boyd's house.
How old were you?
Oh, I don't know. We dug a well there that we drilled the holes and Dad would blast it, but I was in 3rd grade. Anyway.
9.
Anyway, we decided we better show courage so that lion wouldn't chase us. So we go right on up through those rocks and out the other side, and that lion's sitting up there. And he's got his head cocked, and he's looking like this down at us, you know, watching us. And his tail was going, you know,
like
he was anticipating something.
Yeah.
I don't know what, but he wasn't hungry. And he was there, and he just let us go by, and we went up and got the eggs, and we told people up at Uncle Boyd's house that there was a lion on the big rock coming up here by the trail. And they just scoffed at us. Went back home, and he was gone, and nobody would believe us when we got back home. Mm-hmm. But my grandpa came out there the next day, and he humored us, and he went up there with us, and he had a tale to tell. And there were some big lion tracks up there on the top of that rock. It wasn't the rock. The rock was like this, and then the dirt and stuff came out onto the rock. It was kind of in a bank, so there were tracks up there.
I remember being out here on this piece of property, and there weren't really elk running around out here.
That one Joe shot was a figment.
Yeah, we were out here, and I was like, we told our parents that there was an elk walking by the house over here, and they're like, "You mean a deer?" And Ben and I were like, "No, we mean an elk. Like, we know the difference between a deer and an elk." We said an elk, and they're like, "No, there's no way there's an elk here. That was a deer." And we were so angry that they didn't believe us that there was an elk. So then we walked out there, and we found the elk. And so we went back, and we said, "The elk is still out there." And they're like, "You mean the deer?" And it was a few days later when Uncle Joe walked out and saw that elk and shot it.
It was good eating. It might have been somebody's imagination, but it sure tastes good.
But yeah, there were. That makes you pretty mad when people don't believe you and you're a little kid.
Yeah.
I don't know that I was mad. I was just disappointed. Nobody will believe it. We saw a lion. The lion saw us, and he looked at us, and he acted. I mean, his tail, he was just kind of excited, and his tail would flip back and forth, you know.
I saw one over here. I was on the trampoline outside, and Michaela was 9 months old, and I'm bouncing the baby outside, you know, and I saw it coming up the road. And at first I was like, is that a dog? Like, it was pretty far down the hill. And I was like, waiting for it to come out from behind the blackberry bushes. Like, it just walked right behind. And I was watching, waiting, and waiting. And then I thought maybe it was watching me. So I took the baby back in the house, and I came in and I told my mom. I was like, "Mom, I think it was a cougar, you know. I'm pretty sure, like, it had the cadence of it, and, looked like it had big paws, but, it disappeared, so I couldn't be sure." And we waited probably, 45 minutes to an hour or something. Finally, we decided, you know what, we're better off calling everybody and telling them, "Hey, you know what? I think I saw this. Get your kids in the house."
Yeah, I remember that,
And then we went and looked. John came up with his gun, and we went and looked, and there were cougar tracks.
Yeah,
and then they were down the road by the loggers, down at the bottom of the hill, and they had seen the cougar a couple times. There were big old tracks in the road down there. But, all of the years I've had game cameras out here, probably 8 or 9 years, I've never caught one on camera. And I've got a lot of cameras sprawling across the property, and I've never seen one on camera.
They're around. There was a...
Oh, they're here.
Recently, there was one just down the road, Redland Fisher's Mill on the police car. Got it on his dash cam.
Yeah.
Right in front of him.
Yeah. Oh, no doubt. They're here.
There was a lion out here not too long ago. Todd went up after it. It was up above their chicken pen. And it was just around for a while, but when they might have been looking for the chickens, Yeah. And when Todd started going up there and looking for it, it cleared out of the country. It quit coming around. So that was a couple of years ago. So no reason they wouldn't be.
I can hear the speaker.
Huh?
Is it mine picking it up?
I don't know what I did with my other hearing aid that I took out.
It's right here.
Okay.
We ready for bed?
I took
we call it?
Yeah, it's 11.
See, you did good, Grandpa.
Well, there's a million stories.
I know. I was really impressed. You pulled out a few that I hadn't heard before.
I like this. Just be careful who you show some of them to.
Yeah.
It's hard to. It's easier to have a conversation around here when you put a headset on and you can.
Yeah.
You're not shouting.
You can hear each other.
Yeah, it's kind of nice.
You need this for my mom's house all the time.
I know, in the living room, everybody throws a headset on. Who wants to talk to mom?
And then the kids.
And then you can just ignore the kids.
Friends, hunters, outdoorsmen, lend me your ears. Please take this moment to listen to this excerpt from the Gritty Bowmen film, Back to Traditions. Despite our ever-changing, ever-indignant world with its growing ignorance of and indifference to the ways of the wild, I remain a predator, pitying those who revel in artificiality and synthetic success while regarding me and my kind as relics of a time and place no longer valued or understood. I stalk a real world of dark wood and tall grass stirred by a restless wind blowing across sunlit water and beneath star-strewn sky. And on those occasions when I choose to kill, to claim some small part of nature's bounty for my own, I do so by choice, quickly, with the learned efficiency of a skilled hunter. Further, in my heart and mind, I know the truth and make no apologies for my actions or my place and time. Others around me may opt to eat only plants, nuts, and fruits. Still others may employ faceless strangers to procure their meats, their leather, their feathers, and all those niceties and necessities of life. Such is their right, of course, and I wish them well. All I ask in return is no one begrudge me, and all of us who may answer the primordial stirrings within our hunter souls, my right to do some of these things myself. What you just heard is a quote from M.R. James. We truly live in a world that is largely ignorant and indifferent to the ways of the wild. And although some regard us as relics of a time and place no longer valued or understood, we have the opportunity to change the way these people view the hunter and the hunt. We can share our experiences and nature's bounty with those who employ these faceless strangers. And by so doing, we make a difference, not just for ourselves, but for the wild animals in the wild places we care so deeply about. Never stop sharing your passion for hunting and the outdoors. Our wild animals and our wild places depend on it. And as always, good luck on your hunts and stay gritty.
This is Ty Stubblefield, and you're listening to the Gritty Bowmen.
Gritty Bowmen.
For those things. Suppose I can hear him. Hello? Yeah. Oh, checking on me sound. Well, I'm doing good. Well, that's because we have things going on here. We're doing I think a podcast is what you guys call it. Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, of course I'm all right. You know, I can't die. Yeah, I'm doing good. I'll give you a call when we're done. Yeah, we'll, okay, guys. I'll give you a call when they get through here. All right, good. Bye-bye.
I cut myself with the razor blade through the hand, which started bleeding. Now, it wasn't like a big cut, but, you know, you're 12. I cut my hand. I'm sitting there bleeding, right, and I'm waiting for Ben to cut his hand. Well, Ben lost the nerve to cut his hand. So we're sitting here arguing about whether he should cut his hand or not. And someone's grabbing like a needle to poke it, you know, I'm like, that's not the same thing.